Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Open Mic number 156. And today we're diving back into the Brenda Petersen deposition, 2005 deposition, which happened at the end of August in 2006. Or I'm sorry, 2005. And we covered about, roughly 80 pages the first time. And I'm going to play just a little bit of that before we start. So we're back in kind of context and got our head wrapped a little bit around of what was going on. But first, first I want to give a big hands out to and prayers and whatever good vibes we can send to the folks in California that are they're under the gun and certainly in certain parts. And now we're hearing Rhonda was just talking about the last few minutes and OJ is that or Ojai, California. They had some earthquakes.
Yeah,
So
it's
and
in
then
Ojai.
Ojai. So and then all this damn rain they're getting. So I'm sure that's going to spell a lot of trouble. Hope our lovely lady Neverly is okay. Um, so anyway, good vibes to everyone there. So anyway, before we get started, let's let everyone say hello quickly, and then I got one more thing after we can let everyone say hello, and before we start, that I'm going to talk about that Dark Side of the Moon brought to my attention. I hadn't really forgot about it, but this is something that it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're dealing with these depositions. So anyway, we got Alice. How you doing, Alice?
Hey Jack, yeah, doing good, thanks. Hi everyone on panel. Hi everyone in chat. It's nice to see all the usual culprits in chat. So
Thank you, Alice. And then we have Andy B on the case.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everyone on the panel and in chat. Looking forward to another Sunday night explosion of open micness. So, I hope everyone's well and the people in California are doing okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andy. Cherie, I don't recall. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Open Mic.
Sister Susan.
Hey, Jack. Hi, everybody. It's only like 106 here today, something like that. So,
Good
not
God.
too bad.
Yeah, I think it's almost
But
90 here, which is hot as hell.
yeah, we got another week of it and then another cool down. So it's got to make another week. So welcome, everybody. Let's get to it.
Thanks, Susan. JD, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'd like to say hi to everybody in chat and everybody that's on the panel.
Thanks so much, JD. Sister Rhonda?
Hello to everybody on the panel. I love seeing new faces on the panel during open mic. It's awesome. And hello to everybody in the chat.
Thanks so much. And Doc Silkman in the house.
Thank you, Jack61, and welcome everyone on the panel and welcome everyone in chat. Yeah, our thoughts and prayers, clearly with what's happening in California at the moment. Pretty crazy stuff, but let's hope it subsides and things get back to normal. But it's great to be here. Thank you so much, guys.
Absolutely. Okay, with that said, I'll tell you what. Rhonda, can you do a quick intro to everyone that's in the live chat so far?
Yep, I sure can. Let's see, we have Clive Coolidge and Dark Side of the Moon. One of our fabulous mods, Inexplicable Susan, is in the chat. Gloria, hi Gloria, Mark Kaz, Pete Moss, Colette M, Zen Heglin. I'm really sorry. I know I butcher your name every time. I apologize. Katie did it. Welcome. Great to see you here. Let's see. Nan's Life is here with us. Great to see you, Nan's Life. And let's see. Pete Moss. Did I say Pete Moss or Graham? I get the two mixed up sometimes. Carol, it's great to see you, Carol, and Paul Ward. Great to see you, Paul. Thanks for joining us. And Anthony Hills, and he's requesting that Alice not swear today. So
Good luck with that.
request noted. Request noted. Team
Tell
Safe
Anthony
is in
Hills
the
to
chat. Tell Anthony Hills what?
bugger off.
Oh,
Alice can
bugger
swear
off,
all she
Anthony
wants.
Hills. Everybody loves Alice's swears. Cher and Grammy. Hi, Grammy. Great to see you. And let's see. Under Your Scars. Welcome, Under Your Scars. Great to see you today. Dr. Silkman is in the chat and also on the panel. And I see JD in the chat as well. So hopefully I got everybody. If not, we'll catch you on a break.
Behind the Magic is in chat as well, and so is Tina.
I got Tina. I didn't see Behind the Magic, but I did see Tina.
Yeah, Behind the Magic. She was
Great.
just up a wee bit. But
Okay.
hello.
All right.
Alrighty. Thank you, Allison and Rhonda, for saying hi. Okay. A couple things. The Prism live chat bot that's on the left side of your screen, if you're watching YouTube, is supposed to be a mirror of what is in the actual YouTube live chat, and it works. And it worked great up until they fixed everything and gave us a great big update about a month ago. I thought it fixed it. I'm sorry. It was screwed up after that. They came out with a patch a week and a half ago, 10 days, whatever, and it seemed to work. I know that we've done at least 2 lives and it worked fine. Well, then last night on the Reading with the Crew, it did the same thing. It got out of sync, it locked up. I had to literally delete it out of Prism and re-add it, and it started working again. I've sent yet another trouble ticket. If it screws up again tonight, just let me know. I'll do the same thing. That's all I know to do right now. I don't know how to fix it. Reinstalling it, Prism, doesn't fix the issue. It's something that they've done, changed, or whatever. There's that. The next thing, Dark Side of the Moon sent me a call, and this happened on November 9th, and there's actually a couple calls that are interesting. The main one I want to talk about is this dispatcher was talking to someone. I don't know which officer or detective, whoever, and she was talking about she said the lawyer. That's all she said. She didn't identify them by name, but it had to be Glenn or Kelly. This was on Channel 6, and she says this lawyer says that the call is being recorded, and it's supposed to, this is private information, it's attorney-client stuff. There's a long pause, and this cop says, we'll take care of it. Don't know what that means at all. Of course, I suspect that they listen to whatever they want anyway. Anyway, I thought, okay, well, there's got to be another call, right, where Kelly called in, or one of them called in, and I knew there was. So I checked back further on Channel 6, and there's nothing. So I went over to Channel 7 and found there's a call about 15 minutes prior to that it kind of talks about what she's saying, but he's having a real problem getting a hold of Stephen. They did that intentionally. We know they played games and all that. And in reality, what I really should do, I don't necessarily think it's a key call, but I can certainly string these calls together and make a video and put it in the miscellaneous about the issues of Glenn and Kelly just trying to see Stephen on the afternoon and evening of the night after he was arrested. It was a joke. They did it intentionally. Played keep away and hide and go seek, and it's terrible. It's just absolutely terrible. I mean, can you imagine in today's climate and social media and so forth of a police agency literally trying to hide someone they've arrested from their own lawyers and won't let them talk? It's crap. It's total garbage. So anyway, there's that. And then finally, what I've got up on screen to get us back into where we left off the last time, I'm going to play about a minute or so of what we did 2 weeks ago at the end of Brenda Petersen's deposition. It won't take long, but it will get us back in kind of in the frame of mind of where they were at. I'm not going to play the entirety because I don't want to go back that further. Just a couple minutes should be sufficient.
What page did we end on, Jack?
We are on, hold on here. We're going to start on page 87, line, well, we finished on line 10. We were starting on line 12.
Okay.
That's where the reporter went off. We went off the record, and that's where it stopped us. I'll pop it on the screen.
Jack, were you wanting me to read as well, or?
Please.
Okay.
Please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to get you and basically the same players that can and will read tonight. So if that's okay. Anyway, I'm going to play here this last couple minutes, and then we'll get started with the actual deposition. All right. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, if you're in Discord, you need to mute and unmute YouTube.
What was the source of the urgency as you understood it at the time?
Mr. Cavalli, objection, no foundation.
I believed there was an urgency to get the case done because of who the victim was.
Okay. And that urgency was an urgency on the part of Sheriff Koceric.
Mr. Pollen, object, no foundation.
Is that correct?
Mr. Pollen, speculation.
You may answer.
That's what I believed, yes.
Okay. Was that a belief that you shared with the other women?
Yes.
Was that a belief that you shared with Vogel?
No.
Is that anything that you talked to Koceric about?
No.
Anything you talked to other police officers of the sheriff's department about?
If I did, I don't recall.
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 90, which is Beverly Badger's statement. And I take it you haven't seen that before today.
No.
All right. We're going to go off the record for a minute and just take your time and read it.
Reporter off the record for looks like about a minute. And we're going to stop right here at line 10, head back on the record. That's enough for tonight. We are at... Okay, there we go. That kind of gets... It's not too far back and kind of gets us back in the headspace of where they were. So if you give me just a second, I'll get the actual file up here. Let me pop this off here. And then...
I'm just going to read from YouTube, Jack.
Okay. I'll try to keep up with you and not screw up like I did the last couple times.
It's fine. You're fine.
Just a few things, again, to keep in mind. The goal of Glenn and Kelly were to find out everything they could about Gregory Allen. Who knew what and when did they know it and what was talked about. Basically kind of a off the record kind of thing, or even on the record if they could get it. But basically, what was the discussion about within Vogel's office, communication with Koceric, all these various players that are involved. This is their goal because clearly there was some shenanigans that went on with Gregory Allen. There's no doubt about it. And Glenn and Kelly knew it. And I fully believe, and I think Duck and everyone here, if Vogel or Koceric and Vogel had actually been deposed, they would have been destroyed on the stand. Destroyed. There's no doubt.
Absolutely. Yep.
Duck, opinion on that?
100% agree. And I think you got to highlight the point that there's no doubt that people got together, discuss strategies, what to keep in, what to keep out. And certainly there would have been no mention of Gregory Allen. And you're correct. Had Koceric and Vogel taken the stand and that information got put forward, I reckon that probably would have doubled the amount of money they were going to give Stephen. it looked really, really bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly, I don't think he would have been awarded anywhere near 36 million, but then, for me, 5 to 8 million would have probably been more like a settlement that he would have agreed to, because
Yeah.
Glenn and Kelly had him by the nuts. There's no doubt.
I agree, but also the damage and embarrassment to the MTSO, Kacerik and Vogel would have been immense.
Oh yeah. Well, and then you never know if that track had to move forward. And I've thought about this often. Of course, it's just thinking. I can't do shit about it. But if this had proceeded forward, Teresa doesn't go missing, and they don't pull any other crap on Stephen, and it came out about Gregory Allen going to be arrested. He's got an arrest warrant for this 1991 cold case, and that actually came out into the public. Holy shit! And I know the state authorities were so fearful of that. And I honestly, I have looked. I can't find anything about that. Nothing. Not from Wisconsin, not from Minnesota. Nowhere is it mentioned. And cold cases were mentioned all the time back then. They still are, even today. So
Wasn't Penny gonna have him in her talk that she did at the prisons in like 2 weeks' time?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, she didn't realize it though. She didn't realize that it was Gregory Allen that was going to attend one of her presentations, and how horrific that would have been.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. So anyway, all right, let's get to it. We've talked enough. As always, if there's questions as we're going, I know this is not really kind of a question type podcast, but if there are questions in the live chat, please put a Q, ask your question, because we take breaks, and we'll try to get to them. For the lawyers and so forth, the usual players, Rhonda, you be the lawyer, and Susan, if you can be Brenda Petersen, I'll be Bascom,
Sure.
and that Covelli, and then Cherie, if you can do
Court. The court
again.
judge. The court.
No, there's no court here. This is.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Mayor, maybe.
Yeah, Mayor. I can't think. Yeah, we'll see. It's not Finkelmeyer. You'll know who they are. Yeah. And then Alice, I know you're probably watching chat. If you could be the court reporter, if that comes up.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
All right. All right, Rhonda, you can start on line 12. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I opened my document. I can read it from mine. Sorry. Then you have to stress about scrolling in time.
Okay. Line 12, whenever you're all ready.
Ms. Petersen, at the bottom of the first page of Exhibit 90, there's a statement, quote, Adker continued by saying when she saw the composite picture that had been drawn, this picture instantly reminded her of Alan, end quote. Do you see that statement?
Bascom.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Bascom, do you see that right here, starting with quote unquote Badker?
Oh, okay. Yes, I see that.
Okay. Is that something that Beverly Badger told you?
Yes.
All right. If you would go to the second full paragraph on the second page, the first sentence says, quote, Badger stated that at one time he told the Manitowoc County District Attorney at the time, Dennis Vogel, he thought this composite photo looked like Alan and not Avery, end quote. Is that something that Beverly Badger told you she had told Vogel?
I don't remember that. No.
Okay. Is it something that she had told you that she thought the composite looked like?
Yes.
Alan and not Avery?
Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Then it goes on, quote, Vogel told Badger that Alan could not have committed this crime because Alan was on probation in Door County at the time the crime was committed, end quote. And I think you've already told us that that's what he told you as well.
As a group.
Okay. Quote, Vogel told Badger that Alan's probation officer had been contacted and the probation officer verified that Alan had an alibi at the time of the crime was committed, end quote. Is that something also that Vogel told you in the group?
I'm going to break right here just briefly. We have the probation officer's report. I'm talking about interview. He said he was not contacted. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell Vogel's allegedly talking about here, but this guy
He's
said he was.
lying,
Yeah, he was not
obviously.
contacted. Well,
Well, yeah, he wasn't planning on anybody checking up on that.
no,
Nope.
and they did. So that was the interview that Lehman and Strauss had with this guy. He was not contacted. So what the hell, man? Anyway, back to it. Mr. Covelli, objection asked and answered.
Yes, this is all from the same conversation.
Okay. Quote, Acker told the special agents it was later determined the probation officer said he had seen Alan within a day or so of the incident and did not provide an alibi to Alan's whereabouts at the time the crime was committed, end quote. Is that something that Backer told you?
Mr. Covelli, objection to the form.
I don't recall her telling me that. No.
Okay. Is that something that any other person told you?
Bascom, it's been asked and answered.
I was going to say, as I stated before, I did not find out about that until after the Department of Justice's investigation.
And what did you find out after the Department of Justice investigation about that and from whom?
I believe that the information I remember reading was that Alan was not even on probation at that time.
And when you say quote unquote reading, are you referring to the Attorney General's report that you read it in the Attorney General's report?
In that report that came through on the fax machine.
Okay. And did you by any chance also read it in the newspapers?
I may have, I don't recall that specific part
Okay.
in the newspaper.
Now, at the time you found that out, you knew that your own belief way back when the three of you had talked with Dennis Vogel was that you questioned that alibi, correct?
We didn't question the alibi. We questioned whether anybody checked his alibi.
Okay. So you had at least that issue in mind at the time that the three of you talked with Dennis Vogel and raised that issue, right?
Yes.
So now it's these many years later and you find out that you were right, correct?
Bascom, I'm going to object to the form.
I don't know that I found out I was right. I was shocked to find out he wasn't even on probation at the time.
Okay. Did you talk with Bev Badker and Jill Martins about that?
Bev, yes, I did. I do not believe Jill. I don't believe that I talked to Jill about that.
Did you make any effort to find out how it came to pass back in 1985 that Vogel was telling you that this alibi had been checked, and now you find out in 2003 Alan wasn't even on probation?
I don't understand exactly what you're asking me.
I'm asking you whether when you found out that fact and were shocked by it, you did any follow-up. You had any further conversations with your friends, any further conversations with anybody else about how this occurred?
No,
Okay. Did you have a belief at the time that you found out from the report that Alan wasn't even on probation at the time? Did you have a belief yourself that Vogel had made up the story
Covelli, objection.
at the time
At-
that you were questioning him about whether Alan's alibi had been looked into?
Mr. Mayor, objection.
Mr. Covelli, objection, lack foundation.
Mr. Mayor, form of the question.
Bascom, form and foundation. God, gosh, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
okay, I just want to make sure I'm answering. You're asking me if I believe Dennis made that up?
Once you found out that Alan was not on probation, even.
I don't believe that I thought that Dennis made that up.
Okay. What did you think about that?
Only what I told you previously. I was shocked that he wasn't even on probation.
As you sit here today, do you have any explanation for how it could be that Vogel told you in 1985 that he was informed that Alan was under probation supervision, and then you find out he wasn't even on probation?
Bascom and Cobelli, objection, no foundation in form. Mr. Bascom, calls for speculation.
You're going to have to ask me again.
That's okay. I'll withdraw the question. A couple more paragraphs down, it begins, quote, in Badger's opinion, end quote. In Badger's opinion, the detectives were not necessarily trying to prove whether or not the crime could have been committed by Avery. Instead, she feels the detectives were going to find a way to show that Avery could have done the things he did in Green Bay and still have been in Two Rivers, end quote. Quote, in the Two Rivers area to commit the crime, end quote. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is that something Badger discussed with you?
Yes.
And is that something that you shared your view on with Badger?
Yes.
What was your view?
My view was Stephen Avery had just brought home two young twin babies, and that they had several other children in the vehicle as well. My main concern was that Stephen Avery and his wife would have had to get all of those children in and out of the car seats at each stop, and that the detectives had not had 4 or 5 children to deal with when they did their run.
So that the timing elements were incorrect as a result of that, you believed.
I believed I didn't see how they could be the same
The same as,
as Avery's time.
okay. Exhibit 91 is your statement. And again, I'm going to suggest we go off the record and you take your time reviewing your own statement, and then I'll have some questions about that.
Okay. We're near the end of the first videotape, so we'll take this opportunity to change the tapes off the record. End of first video 148 to 151. Okay, we're beginning the second videotape back on the record.
Ms. Petersen, if you turn to the second page of Exhibit 91, you'll see that your conversation with the agents was terminated, according to them, at about 10:50 in the morning. Do you see that?
Well, I see 10:50. It doesn't say AM, but
Okay. Do you recall whether both you and Bev Badker were interviewed on the morning of September 23rd?
I don't recall the specific date. No. I know that we were both interviewed on the same day.
Okay. And did the two of you have any conversation about the upcoming interviews before they took place?
I would say we probably did.
Do you remember what the conversation was?
Just unhappy that we had to do it, and we weren't looking forward to being interviewed by DCI.
And did the two of you conclude that you were going to tell it like it was, so to speak, just as you've told us today what you thought?
Did we conclude that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let the chips.
Cobelli, I'm going to object to the form.
Let the chips fall where they may. You were going to tell the agents what you remembered from when these events occurred in 1985.
Bascom, object to the form.
I knew I was going to.
Okay? And did you, based on your conversation with Bev, did you think that she would do the same?
Knowing Bev, I would say yes.
Okay. If you would go to the second to last paragraph on the first page of 91, quote, Petersen stated that she was also familiar with Avery because she was working with Sandy Morris, who was a victim of Avery. Avery was charged with exposing himself to her, end quote. Is that something you told the agents?
Yes.
Were you, in fact, working with Sandy Morris at the time
At the time?
that these events occurred?
Covelli, which events, counsel?
The events in 1985 when Penny Petersen was assaulted. Had you been working with Sandy Morris at that time?
At the same time that I was working with Penny on hers?
During the 6 months preceding Penny Petersen's case?
I don't know the time frame. I believe Sandy Morris was a victim I worked with prior to becoming involved with Penny Petersen.
And as a result of working with Sandy Morris on that prior occasion, you knew about Stephen Avery.
I knew who Stephen Avery was, yes.
Okay, had you seen him before?
Yes, I would have seen him in court.
Okay, so you knew what his physical appearance was like at the time that you saw the composite drawing.
I saw him once in court, so I would have to say somewhat. Yes.
Okay, at the time that Stephen Avery was arrested, did you have any knowledge of the relationship between Judy Dvorak and Stephen Avery?
At the time of what case?
God. When Stephen Avery was arrested for the Penny Petersen assault in July of 1985.
Did I have any knowledge of Judy Dvorak's relationship with
Stephen Avery. Was she what she thought of him, what she knew about him?
No.
Okay.
No.
Had Judy Dvorak ever talked to you about Stephen Avery in relationship to what it was that Stephen Avery was alleged to have done to Sandy Morris?
I never had any conversations with Judy Dvorak. We did not talk during the course of our work.
When you worked with Sandy Morris as a victim in the case involving Stephen Avery, did you know that Sandy Morris's husband was a deputy with the sheriff's department?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Pollen, objective form.
Okay.
Yes.
When you worked with Sandy Morris on her case involving Stephen Avery, did Sandy Morris, or anyone else for that matter, provide you information about the history that existed between Stephen Avery and Sandy Morris and her family prior to Stephen Avery's alleged assault on Sandy Morris?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe I was told they were related.
What was your understanding as it was related to you of what the relationship history was?
If I remember correctly, I believe that I was told Sandy Morris was Stephen Avery's cousin.
Do you remember having been told anything about a burglary that had occurred up north previously involving Stephen Avery and relatives of Sandy Morris?
No.
Did you have any history relating to Stephen's prior offenses involving a burglary that had occurred?
No.
Okay. The next paragraph down, quote,
Can we stop
Petersen
for 1 second?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So, did Sandy Morris's relatives own one of the bars Stephen broke into? I wonder.
Maybe one of the houses. I can't remember, but if you guys will remember, Stephen and some other fella had broken into several houses north up, I guess in the Crivets area or somewhere up there, and stolen some stuff. They didn't really do anything with it, and they got caught. And the stuff got returned, and I think Alan Avery paid like $1,000 fine to, that Stephen had got in court, and I don't remember what all else happened, but yeah, I don't remember if they broke into a relative of Sandy Morris's. It's possible.
Well, that could be the reason she hated him.
Well, it probably certainly added to it. There could have been.
Yeah.
There probably was. I'm sure there were other reasons too, but I don't think we're really privy to that.
Who knows? Yeah.
But just with what's happened, and everything like that. And I mean, this is my opinion. but I think the family dynamic that was about, and everybody's got that dynamic in their family somewhere down the line, is that some family member kind of marries up in a sense and then becomes above their station and thinks they're better than the rest of the family and everything, and you start talking to them in a certain manner, or they start shooting their mouth off when they're out drinking in pubs and everything like that about how bad that side of the family is, and she wants nothing to do with them and everything like that. And I only know that is because it's happened to my own bloody family. You know what I mean? When you get that drink in the pub and you shoot your mouth off and everything like that, and you say stuff and it gets back to a certain member of the family, and then you've got other members of the family jumping in. So to me, I think that's the kind of dynamic there was between certain ones in the Avery family. No, everybody's got a perfect family, you know what I mean? We've all had faults, we all fall out and everything like that. So I think myself and what I've picked up, what I've seen, what I've read, stuff like that, Sandra Morris thought she was above the rest of them because she married a police deputy. But that's just my opinion.
Well, there's another element to add to exactly what you're saying, and that's Judy Dvorak. She was friends with Sandra Morris, and Dvorak clearly did not like Stephen Avery. Yeah, he'd been in some trouble. He did some stupid shit. There's no doubt he was a dumbass, young, stupid, running around with the wrong people that, didn't really give a damn what they did. And they're I mean, we just don't know what the real dynamic was, when inside a family. We but I think that played a part too, as you said. Yep. And I've been flashing up, guys. Aside from the actual deposition, is this report that Glenn or Kelly, whichever one's talking about it, is referring to. This is the actual report that Strauss and Lehman did. So I've had it pulled up and I forgot to flip it over there. But so we already done that one question. He's talking about these paragraphs here. We're at this last paragraph where he's talking about right now about Petersen. So that's why you keep seeing that kind of flash over. And I'm guessing this writing on here is Glenn and Kelly, going through and So if you see that writing, that's what that is.
Can I just make a comment, Jack61?
Please.
About what the ladies have been reading. It's very interesting if you go back and just examine what she said, what Brenda said, that they were looking at the timing of Stephen Avery getting down to the beach, right?
That's right. That's right.
Isn't it interesting how they said we were going to make it work either way?
Yep.
So in other words, despite not looking at the actual the events that occurred, the actual fact that Stephen was with his wife, with his young kids, they never factored that into account.
Nope.
Which goes to show that no matter what, they're going to pin it on Stephen. So in their timed reconstructions, as you know, we've read it here, they went, I think it was 10 miles on average over the speed limit.
That's right.
In order for Stephen just to make it down to the beach, not factor in anything else. It goes to show the bias that they already had on Stephen. They were going to make it work no matter what. And I think that's an important point to highlight.
It's huge. It's a huge point. And as she said, not even factoring in handling 5 kids. No, trust me, we had 5 kids, my wife and I, and that's kind of a feat in itself, especially when they're little. It takes time. You go to the grocery store with 5 kids. You're talking about, probably 10 minutes to get them all loaded, 5-10 minutes to get them all out. All blah blah blah.
Easy.
At least, yeah.
But do you notice the parallels? The parallels were in this case when the judge Angie is basically considering the filings of Kathleen Zellner about the RAV and also the bones. So no matter if somebody else had their hands on the RAV, Stephen did it. It doesn't
Right.
matter. The bones were in the Manitowoc County gravel pit or on Cuss Road in Yunderburn Barrel number 2. Stephen did it.
Stephen did
So
it.
what?
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're doing exactly what they did in 1985,
That's
and
right.
they transposed it to 2005. The same thinking patterns. That's scary, guys.
It is. It's really frightening because it just tells you that if state authorities get their target on your back, you're screwed. You're absolutely done in. It's really frightening. It really is. Okay. Any other comments before we get started, Alice? You see anything we need to hear? See, Tina Sage has made a comment. Tina Sage says they all. Go ahead.
Yep.
No, you read it.
Tina says they all knew what they did to Stephen the first time, and puzzled why anyone would question them planting evidence. These are good cops. They wouldn't do that. Yeah.
That's right, Tina.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You nailed it.
But that's a very good point, and that's why we shouldn't be outraged. People shouldn't be outraged when we suggest that material evidence was planted, because you can see the seeds of what they did in 1985.
Yep.
Okay, they didn't plant evidence; they just simply manipulated it to fit Stephen. Right? Do you notice the difference? Whereas now, what they're doing is they're planting evidence so Stephen can't get out. Right? It's no different, guys. It's more sophisticated.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
planted Penny in Stephen's brain. I mean, they planted Stephen
Correct.
in Penny's brain.
Yes,
right.
they did. Yes, they did.
Well, and they omitted, as has been talked about here, they omitted not only did they have to speed to get to the beach area, they left out the children and the wife. Just left it out, not dealing with it at all. It's complete bullshit. Lies
And
of
she had
omission.
Yes.
given birth a couple days ago. She probably wasn't very speedy, much less having babies to carry.
Well,
Right.
that's right. That's exactly right. That's another element that is completely ignored. Yeah, great points, guys. Okay.
There was lots of things ignored though, Jack. I mean, especially the 16 bloody witnesses that said that they
Yep.
were with them. You know what I mean? And they still insisted on going after Stephen. I mean, my heart goes out to Penny Bernstein, because can you imagine how that woman felt in 2003 when Stephen got exonerated?
Oh my God, that would be devastating. I mean, I know as a
By
person.
yeah, but by DNA proof, the proof that was supposed to have convicted him the first time round is the thing that got him off on the second. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's that poor woman. I would like to know what her opinion of the police are now.
Well, I mean, to me that I mean, I don't know. If I just kind of try to put myself, I can't really do it, but just trying to be empathetic and put myself in that position. To me, it would show a glaring spotlight on MTSO and what they did. To me, it would.
Yeah.
Be like, what the fuck did you people do? What's going on here?
Yeah.
That would be me, but.
Yeah, I mean, especially though, Jack, when she was getting the phone calls for Alan,
Yep.
the breathing down the phone and everything like that, and she's phoning, because that was his MO, and she's phoning the police and telling them this is happening, and they're still saying to her, nah, it's all right, just ignore it, we've got the man and we've got him, you know what I mean? And I just can't imagine. Yeah. But she is the only one, and I just want to put this out there, because Penny is the only one out of the whole 85 scenario. She is the only one that has actually gave Stephen an apology for what happened.
That's right. Doc?
I was going to say, the ultimate insult, and really it is demoralizing for Penny. The ultimate insult is that, first of all, Stephen forgave her, hugged her, forgave her, and said it's not your fault. The ultimate insult is that both Pegel in a report and Kacerik on television ultimately blame Penny for picking out Stephen.
They
right?
did.
Now, you think about it, right? How vulnerable you are. You've just been attacked on a beach. It would have been horrific. You place your trust in the police, and they clearly manipulated her to pick Stephen. And then ultimately, when Stephen gets exonerated, what do they turn around and do? They
They blame her.
ultimately blame the victim. And so
Yeah.
she had to go through this shocking ordeal twice. That's terrible.
Well,
Yeah.
and you know, they never really publicized the fact that, you know, Penny had told Vogel, you know, I'm not entirely sure, you know, like 80%, and he's like, you can't do that. You got to be 100% in court. So
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
100%
manipulation.
correct.
It's manipulation to me, Doc.
Oh, yeah.
It is. They were hedging all their bets on putting Stephen away for a very long period of time. They clearly did not like him. His association with Sandra Morris and what he did was his ultimate downfall.
Oh yeah.
And you know, so it enrages me when a lot of guilters think, oh, come on, are you trying to say that they would set Stephen up? Well, you know, for the 2005 murder of Teresa Hobart, what you guys are doing with the reading of the depositions have shown the plan that was laid down by Kacerik and Vogel and other officers exactly how they were going to put Stephen away for something he never did. They got embarrassed because he got exonerated. This time they're going to make sure that it's really, what we're seeing is truly shocking.
Yeah.
It is, and we're, you know, I don't know. I guess we're jaded. We've seen so much in the last, you know, several years that is really kind of shocking in our society. That we see this and we read it, and it doesn't. I don't think it affects us really like it should. That's why, you know, I picked this case. I know you, Doc, and everybody here have picked this case because it is a linchpin. It's a gigantic nuclear bomb sitting in this, you know, kind of sitting in the side of the Wisconsin Attorney General's office, and they know it. They know that it is, and it's only going to take really one solid thing to unravel it. No doubt in my mind.
But it has far-reaching consequences.
Sure it
It
does.
goes to show it goes to show that it can happen to any of us, our family, when there's an inherent bias by the law enforcement officers, that there's a deep-seated hatred for somebody, you're
Yep.
toast. And you only have to think of the poor African Americans in the 40s and 50s that had no voice, and they were targeted by district attorneys. And I could quote you many examples in which African Americans have been sent to their death in the electric chair,
Yep.
only to be exonerated 20 or 30 years later. Yeah, big fucking deal. It's too late. And that's why this case is so relevant today, is so important today, because it's a case that has everything you can imagine, everything wrong with the criminal justice system. I'm from Australia and I'm outraged. You know, that you guys must be smoking. It's so bad.
It's so outrageous, and it goes against everything that I was taught as a child. And I mean, you know, starting in middle school and up, where you could really retain that, you know, the police are there to help, they're there to do the right thing, and it goes against such a grain against that. I mean, the county that I grew up in until after the current sheriff, he's really cleaned it up, and this goes back decades. But when I was young, there was a lot of really dirty and corrupt crap going on. I could tell many stories about that. I won't, but I could. But a new sheriff got elected, and he cleaned a lot of that out. He put himself at risk, at real risk, of getting killed. He really did. I'm not saying it. You know, it was not a huge town that I grew up in, but it was of good size, and a lot of people were so fed up with all the crap they elected this guy, and he began to make changes, and it worked. And I mean, there's still issues, but nothing like there was back in the 70s and 80s. It was so bad. Another thing that people, I think especially the younger generation don't really, maybe even some of the older generation don't realize that you weren't required to have a lawyer until 1963. Right? But a lot of people don't know that. 63. They didn't have to give you a lawyer necessarily. Can you imagine going to trial or going to court not having a freaking lawyer there to help you represent you? It's crazy.
Oh, you're toast. You are absolutely toast.
Yeah.
I think a
And-
testament to the outrage of this whole saga is here we are almost 8 years later and talking about it every day.
That's right.
Correct. But it also had the flow-on effect of people pointing a finger of blame at the Innocence Project, right? Remember all the negativity that went towards the people that exonerated Stephen, and also the attitude of law enforcement. Remember Petersen, Herman, the others that said, well, had Stephen been kept in prison, Teresa Horbach likely would have been alive.
Such
When you're making,
bullshit.
when you're making comments like that, you're dead in the water. You are toast.
Yep.
Nan's life in chat, she's got a comment. She says they did the same in the 2005 case when they ignored the messages on Teresa's condolences. Ryan Hilliger said the name on the comment was Stephen Avery, but Stephen was in custody.
Well, yeah, somebody had, created that account and wrote the negative message. And what was so dumb, the person that ran that, I don't know anybody that runs a website, especially back then. I don't know so much about now, but back then on a message board, your IPs were logged. The IP address was logged. They could have found out who sent that message. But
Brian thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I remember the call.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which is interesting. Sorry, just one.
No. Go ahead, Doc.
I'll just make this comment, then I'll shut up, because I'm seeing a lot of parallels to what's happening now. It'll be very interesting to get. I would get all the MTSO officers to provide a sample of their handwriting, because the Sakiki note could have well been written by Jason Jost. You think about it now, it all starts to make sense. Jost was the very first one that pointed a finger at the cremains. And what did they say? What did they say in the Sakiki note? Burnt in an aluminum smelter.
Yep.
It's all to do with cremation events. Isn't that interesting?
It is. And as much as, you and Duke and Everly have really worked toward that goal of everything about Yost and his activities, basically starting on the 6th. I mean, I guess we could include the 5th, but really the 6th is really noteworthy, and it really needs to be examined closely.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see a name in here in the live chat before we start back. Maybe this is one you tried to pronounce, Rhonda. It's Jane. I can't pronounce that last name.
Jamala?
No.
Yep. Well, I wanted to say hello. I'll just say Jane.
Jamala.
Jane J. Yeah, that sounds right. I don't think I've seen that name before, so I wanted to say welcome. And any other new folks that have joined us, certainly welcome to this reading of Brenda Petersen's deposition. We get, because we're passionate, we get sidetracked with these various discussions because we can talk pretty intelligently about other elements that we know from their own material. This is not stuff that we make. Of course, we have to make some leaps at times on various things, but this is not what we're talking about here. This is actually what we know based on their material that they provided in documents and so forth. So to echo what Doc is saying, this is really a shocking event, the 85 case. They were going to make it work. I think that was said actually a couple times. So you think about Stephen getting out, this investigation, you can. I've got these reports. This investigation gets started, around mid-month after Aurora and Griesbach went to the DOJ and dumped it in their lab and said, well, we, really want to get this straightened out here. What's going on? And so, out of this, she whitewashes everything. Peg does. Avery really has no choice if he's going to get any kind of satisfaction, is to lay a huge lawsuit on them, make it hurt, painful, make it painful. And I think that immediately put a target on Stephen's back. Immediately.
Yep.
Mid-October 2004. Doc?
But the important thing though here, guys, is that Stephen Avery went through the legal route. He did the right thing.
He
Like
did.
you got to give him kudos for that. He didn't get angry. He didn't get violent. He didn't get a shotgun and go visit the sheriff, the MTSO. He didn't do any of that. He did the right thing because this needed to be exposed for what the sheriff did, and also to backtrack all the cases that Sheriff Kacerik oversaw in his history with the MTSO. There's no doubt about it. Kacerik knew what the consequences were. Kacerik absolutely had to put a stop to it. And, it's the good old boys that were involved in 1985 suddenly bobbed their heads back in 2005. Look no further than Bushman. Yep, it's all there. The parallels are all there.
Absolutely. All righty. Any other comments that you've seen, Alice, that we need to address before we get started back?
Ian Rose joined us. Ian Rose has joined us in chat. He says, a reminder of how disgusting Stephen has been treated. It makes me feel literally sick. The men who are employed and trusted to protect Stephen have done the worst thing imaginable to him. Who do you turn to when the men in power are corrupt? Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same in Luke's case as well. The highest person we can go to, the Lord Advocate, is married to the prosecutor who prosecuted Luke. So in her opinion, she can't even.
God.
Exactly.
You can't tell me that there's not a massive conflict of interest there, Alice. Massive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we think, and I know, and we're just laymen's, you know what I mean? But according to the higher ups, that no, there's no basis for a review or anything like that. So yeah, it's like, where do you go to after that? That is exactly the same with Stephen's case. You know what I mean? It's been as we've went through it bit by bit, transcript by transcript, we have seen that it was from the very top to the very bottom of that police force that are corrupt and have been for decades, you know, because they just didn't all of a sudden start to do this in 2005 or 1985, and this is just my opinion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think these people have been doing this for decades, and they've got away with it for decades. And they have not had anybody like Kathleen Zellner come along and pull it all a fucking cart. And this is what they're shitting bricks for. This is why they're denying her evidence. This is why they're trying to keep her out the fucking courts. Because when it all comes out, all that's going to come out at the end of this is how fucking corrupt Manitowoc County actually is, and how long it's been going on. Because as I said, this hasn't just happened in 85 and then they've stopped for so many years, and all the years to 2005 until Stephen's out again and to plant more evidence to get him back in again. There's no way. This shit has been going on for decades.
Well,
I agree.
That is why Kratz in court went to great lengths and pain to say that whatever happened to Stephen Pryor has nothing to do with this case.
He did say that. That's right.
Because he knew this was a massive shit sandwich that the jury was going to hear all about. And if you notice what Strang and Buting did, they were very, very clever. They kept on referring back to what happened to Stephen in 1985 including asking Culhane what her role was. And you know what she said? I can't remember. I need to refer to my notes. Fuck that.
What a
Fuck
liar.
that.
Well, to kind of add to what Alice is saying here, I mean, for me, the reality, I used to really believe that there was a lot of people involved in this, but the reality is, I think that we had a lot of people that probably, and I'm talking about line officers, they're to do a job, get their paycheck, they got bills just like the rest of us. They were there to do the job, they looked the other way, probably thought, hey, something's really squirrely here, but they don't say anything. But then in reality, there's probably a very, very small number of people that know actually what happened. And I mean very small. Less than you can
Correct.
count on one hand. Because that kind of information is dynamite, and we all know it, right? And so they would have
Correct.
kept that number extremely tight. That's what I believe.
But
You got to have something on somebody. You got to be
Yeah.
able to blackmail them. Yeah.
And Doc has said this so many times, and I 100% agree with him. Culhane had all the swabs. She controlled all of it. She could do whatever she wanted.
Controlled the outcome. She can. That's why, unfortunately, in Stephen's case, the route was with the detectives, Lincoln Colburn, taking the blood vial. The focus should have been on Cherie Culhane and also Dr. Eisenberg. The pressure really should have been on those two.
That's right.
Because they are the ones that controlled the outcome in the trial. By Culhane manipulating all the results, and we know what happened with the key, we know what happened with the bullet, and Eisenberg refusing to classify bones as human. So it's a pity that the pressure really wasn't put on them, because the case could have had a different outcome. And I really pity the jurors who today are probably listening to our podcast and other podcasts thinking, oh shit, I wish we had heard this in court. It would have turned the tide against Stephen. It really would have. And Brenton.
Yeah.
I 100% agree.
Yeah. But it's not only that. You've got to remember, when it comes to like Petersen and Kasurik and Vogel and all the rest of them, they've all been trained by officers and that who were officers in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. And we know what it was like back then, corruption, racism, all the rest of it. Well, they're training the up-and-comings. And then the up-and-comings pick up the habits, either leading officers and everything like that. So it just trickles through. It trickles through the generations to generation to generation, because they keep getting away with it. They keep getting nothing done to them when it comes out that they've interfered with evidence, they've tampered DNA. I mean, just take Daniel's case. The Elaine Taylor, who did Daniel's DNA,
Oh my God,
was trained by fucking Gilchrist, who was fucking what's his name? Bob. Is it Bob? The sheriff? Macy, that's the one. Thank you, Susan. He was gung-ho on executions and everything like that, and she helped him get these convictions. And who did she train? She trained Elaine Taylor. And then Elaine Taylor fucked up Daniel's case and everything like that as well. So it trickles through the generations. And if we can't get rid of that, and we can't get rid of this immunity for lawyers and police and everything like that, then when's it going to stop?
Just to echo on that, just 2 points. If I remember, Elaine Taylor actually did say in court, hey, this is the result I got. I can't tell you how that DNA got there. So at least she was honest to say, I've got no idea how Adara's DNA got on Daniel's trousers. I've got no idea. So what happens is this: it's very easy to manipulate a DNA and DNA evidence, and also come up with a story. to suit your side. That's the danger of DNA. People think they understand DNA. They don't. All right. DNA is very promiscuous. Our cells are everywhere, right? You can easily get secondary transfer on individuals that were hundreds of thousands of miles away, had nothing to do with the crime scene, right? But you got to remember, in 1985, this is pre-DNA, right? Pre-DNA. So now what you see in 1985 is what I think you said, Susan, or just Rhonda, where you now manipulate the witness. You now manipulate the witness to believe that she saw something that she could not have possibly seen, right? So now you manipulate forensic evidence. You manipulate DNA evidence to suit your story. Guys, that's dangerous.
Very, very, very much so, Doc.
Kay says, thanks, Alice. Oklahoma County DA Bob Macy and analyst Joyce Gilchrist were criminals. The corruption in that crime lab still goes unchecked.
There you go.
Hey, that's what I mean. You know, and it annoys me because these people get away with it. You know, they get caught. They get a wee slap in the wrist and you bad girl, bad boy. You know, don't do it again, and then they can go to the next county and become a copper. You know what I mean? It's like, no. The way it works here in the UK, whether it's Scotland, England, Ireland, or Wales, if you are a copper who has been caught doing misconduct or anything like that, say in Scotland, and you get caught for being a bastard or planting evidence or whatever, then that is it. You are done. You are dusted. You will never get another job. You can't then go down to England and get a job in the English police force or Ireland in the Irish police force. It doesn't work like that. If you're caught for misconduct, then you're done. You're dusted. If it's bad enough, then you'll get put in jail. There's been a few, 7 officers, or ex-police officers, I should say, who had a WhatsApp group, and it was full of hate content, racist content, everything like that about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and everything like that, and they were really, really, really disgusting and bad, and they've all just been charged with hate crimes and everything like that, you know. So, and they're former officers now as well. So, but over there, that's what annoys me, is the fact that they get away with it. Yous have got that immunity that gives them the free rein to do whatever they want, because that's what they look at it as. You know what I mean?
Well, the lack of accountability, you know, that goes. I mean, literally, you're right. Pretty much, a cop has to be convicted of a felony before he's unhireable as a police officer. Misdemeanors, they get overlooked all the time. Look at Wendy Baldwin. She had 4 DUIs. And I'm talking about in 2005. She had 4 DUIs. And she was still an investigator.
In fact, didn't Baldwin and Bass burn an effigy of a police uniform?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. After they...
And a burning cross?
That's right. You know, and that's... That was after... That was, I don't know, 2006, 2000... I can't remember I think it was 2006 or 7. But I think that there were promises made and promises broken, and for Wendy. That's what I think. I can't prove that, but why else would she do something like that?
It wasn't a cross; it was an effigy.
It was an effigy, a uniform.
Yep, of a uniform.
Yeah.
The sheriff probably.
Jay had sent me a question about showing a photo of the people that are being deposed, and unfortunately for Brenda's. There is many of these are our photos at the top of the depot, but Brenda doesn't have one, and I don't have a photo of Brenda. I apologize, Jay. We don't have that. Unless somebody out there has a photo that can send it to me, I don't think I've ever seen a photo of Brenda Petersen. And there are a few others that got deposed we don't have a photo of. And, you know, getting the videos, I would love to have these all the videos in full, but MagnaScript wants an embarrassing amount of money for that, which is really kind of dumb. To hold out and kind of hold that kind of stuff hostage. I don't know. Anyway, I apologize for that. I don't have a photo for her. So, all right. If there's nothing
But
else,
you saw what MagnaScript charged Colburn's team for those, right?
I did, but I forgot. Tell me.
It was like $20 or something. It was something just ridiculous.
Oh, so basically gave it to them.
Yeah.
Wow. I got to wonder how much their paper had to pay. Remember they got those clips in the Post Crescent? They got like 6 clips. I wonder how much they had to pony up. I bet they held them hostage.
Yeah. I mean, it might have been $100, but it was, same difference.
Nothing, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. If there's nothing else, let's get back to it. What do you say? Everybody ready? Line 21.
Good doke.
Rhonda, did we put you to sleep? Did we kill you?
No, I'm here. Just listening.
Okay, line 21.
Okay, the next paragraph down, quote, Petersen stated that all through the trial of Avery, he never thought he committed the crime for which he was charged, end quote. You did tell that to the agents.
Yes.
Quote, Petersen believed that she was vocal about how she felt and had some conversations about it with former end quote, clerk Shirley Wilda. Is that true?
Yes.
All right. Did Shirley Wilda say anything to you about what she believed when you told her what you believed?
Yes.
What did she say to you?
That she didn't think Stephen Avery was guilty.
Did she explain why?
Based on the evidence she heard in the courtroom as she was clerking the case.
From the evidence in the trial, did she have any prior knowledge of either Greg Allen or Steve Avery?
I have no way of knowing. I don't.
Did you tell Shirley Wilda your belief about the fact that Greg Allen committed the crime and not Steve Avery?
I don't recall.
Okay. Then it goes on and it says you told the agents that you had some conversations about it with not only Shirley Wilda, officers involved with the case.
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
Who were the officers involved with the case with whom you had those conversations?
As I previously talked about, Detective Kalancic. I believe it was Detective Nicholson as well.
Anybody else?
No, my main conversations are with the detectives on the case.
Who was associating in the prosecution of the case on the police side with Sheriff Kuceric, if anybody, in the Detectives Bureau?
Who was associating with the sheriff?
Who was working with the sheriff on the case when Dennis was presenting it against Stephen Avery?
I don't recall who sat in.
Do you remember whether Jim Gospodarek was assisting the sheriff?
No, I don't recall if Jim was involved.
How about Larry Conrad? Do you know if he was involved?
No, not for certain.
Okay. How about I'm not asking for certain knowledge, just your best recollection.
He may have had a small part in it, but I wouldn't have recalled what.
How about Leo Jadowski?
I can't say. I don't recall.
When you and Beverly and Jill were talking about this case and your concerns about it, did you ever become aware of the Manitowoc Police Department's surveillance of Gregory Allen around the time that Penny Bergson was assaulted?
I knew that they were. I don't know if Bev and Jill did.
How did you know?
Because One of our detectives from the city police department talked about it.
Who was that?
Detective Wayne Wettenkamp.
Did he talk with you about it or with you and others?
I believe him and I had the conversation.
What did Wayne Wettenkamp tell you?
That they were having problems at Red Arrow Park and that they were currently watching Greg Allen's behavior at Red Arrow Park.
And was this a conversation in which you told Wettenkamp your belief that it was Greg Allen who had done this assault rather than Stephen Avery?
No, Wayne and I never talked about that. I knew that Wayne was watching Allen prior to this Burnson case.
Okay. And you knew that because Wayne had told you?
Yes,
On more than one occasion or just the one occasion?
at least once that I can say for sure.
Did Wayne tell you anything about the fact that Tom Bergner had been investigating Greg Allen for sexual offenses right around the same time that Mrs. Bertson was assaulted?
Wayne and I never talked about Penny Burnson's assault.
Okay. Did Wayne tell you that Tom Bergner was investigating Greg Allen in connection with various sexual assaults during the first 6 months of during the first 6 months of 1985?
I don't know.
Did he tell you about the fact that the Manitowoc Police Department was concerned about Greg Allen's sexually assaultive behavior during the month of July 1985?
Did Wayne tell me that?
Yeah.
Bascom, objection. Form.
No.
What did he tell you about what the Manitowoc Police Department was doing with respect to Greg Allen?
That they were watching his activity at the Red Arrow Park area, the beach area. That Greg Allen had been hanging around the beach area. The only reason we would have had that conversation was because we also had the peeping case at that around the same time.
Did Wayne Wettenkamp tell you why they were surveilling Greg Allen in the Red Arrow Park area? They being the Manitowoc Police Department.
Why?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Is there anything else you can recall that Wayne Wettenkamp told you about what the Manitowoc Police Department was doing with respect to the surveillance of Greg Allen?
No.
Were there any other officers of the Manitowoc Police Department who had shared information with you about what they were doing with respect to Greg Allen during the first several months of 1985?
No.
Did Wayne Wettenkamp tell you anything about the Manitowoc Police Department believing Greg Allen to be sexually dangerous at the time that they were surveilling him?
Mr. Pollen, object to form, assumes facts not in evidence.
No.
You, of course, at that time had the knowledge that you already had and you've told us about concerning Greg Allen being sexually dangerous, right?
Covelli and Bascom, objection. Object to the form. Covelli, no foundation.
You can answer.
Yes.
So when you got the information from Wayne Wettenkamp about what the Manitowoc PD was doing with respect to Greg Allen, did you share it with Bev Bagher and or Jill Martens?
At that time?
Yeah.
No.
At some subsequent time?
Yes.
When, roughly?
Somewhere during the pending of Steve Avery's case involving Penny.
Okay. And did you share it with anybody else than Bev and Jill?
No.
Did the three of you make a decision not to bring it to the attention of Dennis Vogel?
Did the three of us make a decision?
Right.
No.
Covelli, object.
Did you make a decision not to bring it to the attention of Dennis Vogel?
I don't know that it was a conscious decision. I just never discussed it with him
How come?
because he was the DA and I figured he probably already knew.
Well, what caused you to think he already knew?
Covelli, objection, no foundation. Calls for speculation.
You can answer.
Well, because law enforcement is much more likely to keep a DA informed of what's going on with certain suspects than they would a victim witness person.
Okay. Was any information provided to you from any source that law enforcement in the City of Manitowoc Police Department had shared with either the DA or anybody in the Sheriff's Department, including the Sheriff, that is to say, the Manitowoc Police Department, knew about their surveillance of Greg Allen?
Covelli, objection form.
I guess you're going to have to be more specific in time period. I don't know exactly where you are right now.
Talking about around the time of the investigation and prosecution of the Penny Berntsen case.
Okay.
That's the time period I'm talking about.
Okay. Now, repeat your question.
I think we're going to have to go.
You keep saying quote unquote case, and I'm not sure which case you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Let's go back to the question.
Alex?
Question played 208 to 209. We've replayed the previous question. We're back on the record.
I just want to make sure that I understand what you're asking me. You're asking me if I had any knowledge that anybody from the city police department told the sheriff's department that they were surveilling Allen at the time that the Berntsen case was being prosecuted.
Or told anybody in the DA's office.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. And you didn't.
I did not.
Okay. Did you, in your discussions with Kalanzik and Nicholson, tell them or talk about with them what Wayne Wettenkamp had told you?
No.
If you go to the top of the second page of the investigatory report, there's a statement, quote, Petersen believed that because she talked about how she did not believe that Avery was the right man charged, that former Manitowoc District Attorney Dennis Vogel would have heard her make those comments, end quote. You see that?
Yes.
Is that something that you told the agents?
Not in the form that they summed it up, or not the way they summed it up. No.
What do you say is the proper form that they should have used to summarize what you told them?
I told them that I'm very outspoken and that I made those conversations about the fact that I did not think Avery committed that crime and that I believed that I probably would have done it at some point in front of Dennis.
Okay. If you go to the second full paragraph, I'm going to start with the first sentence. Quote, Petersen relayed that one thing that was odd about the investigation was how involved the sheriff, Tom Kuceric, was in the case, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
Yes.
Quote, at one point, Kuceric gave Berntsen her own police radio to keep at her house, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
Yes.
How did you know that?
Because Penny and her husband told me they had a radio that the sheriff gave to them.
Okay. Quote, Petersen stated that in 20 years, she's never seen that happen, end quote. Did you tell that to the investigators?
Yes.
All right. Quote, Berntsen received special treatment that normal victims didn't receive, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
Yes.
Quote, Petersen described Berntsen as affluent in the community, and a friend of Kucerik, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
Yes.
How did you know that Berntsen and Kucerik were friends?
I believe Kucerik said that they were friends of the family.
Said that in your presence.
Yes.
Do you remember who else was present and what the context was in which he said that?
Do I remember who else was present? No. I believe the comment was made in our outer general office by him.
I just got lost, sorry.
24.
Line 24.
Okay, sorry.
108.
All right. Was he there visiting with Vogel?
He would have been there on one of the times to meet regarding the case.
With Vogel and Mrs. Berntsen?
I don't believe Penny was present that day.
So it was just a meeting to talk about the case with Dennis.
If my memory is correct, yes. Yes.
Okay. Quote, Petersen relayed that Kucerik gave Vogel lots of pressure to get a conviction for the assault on Berntsen, making comments like, don't lose this, or he better not walk, end quote. Did you tell that to the agents?
I told the agents that Kucerik put a lot of pressure on Vogel to get the conviction. I don't recall those exact quotes. That doesn't sound like how I talk, but I can't say for sure.
Well, I don't think this statement is attributing those remarks to you. I think the statement is saying that you told the agents that in Kucerik putting pressure on Vogel, that Kucerik made those statements.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that for sure I use those phrases or that that's what I told the investigators.
What was the behavior of Kucerik that you observed that caused you to tell the agents that Kucerik was putting a lot of pressure on Vogel?
He was very aggressive. He was continuously in our office during the prosecution of this case. And he was in practically every conversation that was held in Vogel's office with Penny.
Do you believe that it was Kucerik who was responsible for your exclusion from those meetings?
Mr. Pollen, object, calls for speculation. There's no foundation from this witness.
I'm asking the witnesses' belief. You may answer, ma'am.
I don't know Kucerik well enough to say.
Well, let me ask it another way. You certainly know Dennis Vogel and worked with him at the time, right?
Correct.
And it was not the habit of Dennis Vogel to exclude you from meetings with victims. Is that right?
Correct.
And you don't think that Dennis Vogel would do that with respect to Penny Berntsen on his own, do you?
Bascom, object to the form.
Mayor and Foundation, if you have any idea at all.
I can't say what Dennis.
Did you ever complain to Dennis and say, what's going on here? I'm being treated differently than I am in other cases. How come I'm being excluded from these meetings?
No.
How come?
Because he's the DA and it's his call.
Okay. Anything else that Kucerik did that caused you to believe Kucerik was putting heavy pressure on Vogel in this case?
No.
Okay.
Other than no.
All right. Did you talk with Martens and Badker about the kind of pressure that you believe Kucerik was putting on Vogel about the case?
Yes.
Was there an age difference between Kucerik and Vogel at the time that this case took place in 1985?
I have no idea what their ages were.
All right. Do you have any recollection about how long each of them had served in office at the time this case took place?
No.
Did you have a perception at the time that the Berntsen prosecution took place about whether Kucerik was politically more powerful in Manitowoc than Dennis Vogel?
Mr. Pollen, object to the form. It calls for speculation from this witness. Who was more powerful?
Covelli, no foundation.
You can answer.
You're asking me if I thought Kasurik had more power than Dennis?
Right. Political power.
No.
You thought they were equally powerful?
Covelli, objection, no foundation.
Mayor, yeah, I was going to object to that.
You can answer.
I would have thought Dennis had more power.
Do you have a belief about how Dennis responded to the pressure that was being put on him by Kasurik?
Covelli, objection, no foundation.
I personally felt that Dennis seemed to be under a lot of pressure on this case.
Were there things in his behavior that caused you to think that?
Yes.
What were they?
Well, he spent a lot of time on it. He got very angry when things went wrong on it.
Was that atypical of him?
Kind of. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had any contact with Dennis?
Wait, this is embarrassing. Atypical means normal or not normal.
That's fine. It was not characteristic of him.
Bascom, to lose his temper.
Oh, it was I'm sorry. It was characteristic.
Okay.
As I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, well, what does that mean?
Okay, let me ask it to you another way. What was Dennis's temperament when things did not go well in the case? Any different in the Bernson matter than it was in other cases when things didn't go well?
No.
Okay,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Bascom, glad you cleared it up.
Have you had any conversations with Dennis Vogel since Stephen Avery was exonerated in or about September 10th of 2003?
Absolutely none.
Okay. We may be finished. I need to confer with my co-counsel.
Off the record. Off the record, 220 to 223. We're back on the record.
Ms. Petersen, just really very few more questions and we're going to be done. I'm going to read a sequence to you from the deposition of Jill Martens concerning some questions I asked her about Exhibit 91, your statement. And it starts on page 66, line 5, counsel, and goes over to 67, line 17.
Covelli, for the record, if I can just have a general objection to the witness being asked to comment on another witness' testimony, then I won't interrupt.
All right.
Form of the question.
Question. Excuse me. Question. Next sentence. Petersen said that she was familiar with Allen at the time from court hearings that he attended. Did Petersen tell you that she knew Greg Allen from having gone to court? And Miss Martins answered, quote, she may have, end quote. I then said, quote, all right. Then Petersen stated that at the time she saw the composite drawing, she knew what Allen looked like. Did Petersen tell you in your conversations with her that she knew what Greg Allen looked like? Answer from Miss Martins, quote, I don't remember. Question, you've told us already that you knew what Greg Allen looked like, right? Answer, yes. Question, so did you tell Petersen that? Tell Petersen that, yeah, I know what he looks like. Answer, probably. Question, okay. Petersen said that from what she also knew of Allen's history, the attack on Bernson seemed to fit Allen. Is it true that that was something that you and Petersen and Badker all talked about? That is to say, that based on Allen's history, the attack on Bernson seemed to fit Allen, end quote. Mr. Covelli objected. They then said, quote, you can answer, end quote. And Ms. Martins answered, quote, In general, yes, end quote. I said to her, question, when you say in general, tell me what you mean. She answered, that I don't recall exact specific details, but in general, yes, we had discussions along those lines. Question, and the characteristics of Alan that you talked about were the fact that it was a sexual offense and it was violent. Mr. Covelli objected again. I then said to the witness, quote, is that right? End quote. And Ms. Martins said, yes. So here's my question. In your conversations amongst the three of you, did you believe that this crime fit Greg Allen as you knew him to be?
Bascom object to form.
I don't know. I don't recall conversations like that.
As you sit here today, do you believe that the offense that was committed was an offense that was strike that? Did you have the general discussion with Ms. Martins and Ms. Badker that Ms. Martins described in her testimony?
Bascom object to the form. It's been asked and answered.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, and there was a lot of testimony that she doesn't recall. Go ahead.
You can answer.
I don't
Ms.
recall that
Cochin.
specific, or I don't recall that conversation.
It may have happened. It may not have happened.
It may not have. I don't recall it.
Okay, that's all I have.
The record 226 to 228. Reporter, we're back on the record. Mr. Covelli.
Okay, this is a good time to pause, I guess, and have any discussions, questions, whatever, comments. And I apologize. I do have a comment before anyone else gets started, but it kind of came up a little bit, and it reminded me. We discovered this in part 1, and back when I read this originally, it didn't really have any real effect on me. But remember, Brenda Petersen is married to Sheriff Petersen's brother, right? That's number one. And she had been kind of a bachelorette off and on for many years. I mean, she dated, if you remember, she dated Keith, I think is his name. They dated for like 10 years before he asked her to get married. Prior to that, in the 80s, remember when she testified that she dated Larry Conrad from 84 to 86 off and on? I just want to make sure that everybody was aware of that. Detective Larry Conrad, he was involved. She dated him from 84 off and on through 86. But she says they didn't really talk about work. Sorry, go ahead, Susan.
They didn't talk about this case,
Right.
especially.
Bullshit.
Which is why it was going on.
Any comments to that or any other? I mean, to me, it's just utter nonsense that they didn't talk. I mean, what was it? What are they having? Just kind of a quick hookup every now and again? Come on.
It's ridiculous. The more and more that you read these transcripts and everything like that, and I mean, I know we've done them before, but like you say, Jack, it's good to go back and kind of do them again, because now we're picking up on stuff and we're clicking to things that we didn't click to a year ago. You know what I mean? So yeah, it just blows my mind that even to this day, we are still learning new things about this case, and the majority of them are not fucking good. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's exactly right. Doc?
There was mention in what the ladies were reading about an investigation to Gregory Allen. I've got a report here, police report here, dated the 14th of July, 1985, in which there was an attempted rape, and they were investigating Gregory Allen. And guess who they called out with his scent dog? None other than Mike Bushman.
Bushman, absolutely.
And guess who they were looking for? Gregory Allen. And when was the assault on Penny Bernstein? The date of the assault?
July 28th or 29th, I think. Is that right?
Wow. So about 14 days after this, where Bushman is searching for Gregory Allen, he goes and assault Penny Bernstein. Now, you trying to tell me that Gregory Allen wasn't in the minds and thoughts of all the MTSO? Of course he was.
And city
And
police,
what-
Doc. And the city
Yep.
police.
And the city police. So what's incredible from what I'm picking up is that there were all these red flags coming up and no one acted on them. It's a failure to communicate, guys.
Absolutely, Doc. I can see that the live chat bot for prison
More than
is
a
not
failure
working again.
More than a failure to communicate, I think it was a total setup. The start, personally.
Yep, agree. But there were others that were on the periphery who are not part of the setup. And you can see here Petersen had all this concern and knowledge about Gregory Allen, and yet she seemed to think that, oh well, the DA, he should know better. Yeah, he's the one that calls the shot. Even though I have my concerns, I'm not going to disclose it to him. And you're thinking, what the hell? You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yep.
there's no point about crying over spilt milk. You got to pick up the bottle, right? You're not going to watch the bottle empty of all its milk. You pick it up. Here's a case where all these red flags were coming up. They failed to act. And that's exactly what Kelly and Glynn were all about. Guys, if you had all this knowledge, if you had all these concerns, how come you never disclosed them to the DA, to the sheriff, right? But it looks like they
personally,
did.
I think she was worried about her job. Like, she didn't feel like
Yeah.
she could. I mean, she
Just
didn't stop
arguing.
from saying stuff, you know.
No.
She talked about it. She just didn't feel comfortable talking to Vogel. She didn't want to
Correct.
lose her job.
That's correct,
Yeah.
which goes to show that the system is fundamentally flawed, right? In which you're going against the grain, and the consequences for her, you're right, she would have lost her job. Heck, when you consider that she's married to the brother of Petersen, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, you got no chance. You're dead in the water.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
she was
that's tough.
probably warned about it by, several of them. Keep your nose out of it.
Yeah, I mean, she said she's pretty outspoken, but I think she knew kind of where to draw the line. I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that. I don't not really know Vogel, but personality type. He's a politician. They're more of the type A type personalities. They're bullheaded, and it's unfortunate that she felt like she couldn't talk to him about what she saw and what she felt. It really is. But I think that Peter or Kosarik, I think he put the hammer down and told Vogel, "We're going to get this guy." End of story.
Yeah, if she had, for instance, gone to the defense and said, call me up there. I got something to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have ruined her entire life. She's married to a cop. Or dating a cop, or, investigator on the case. She worked for Vogel. She was in an impossible situation.
You're right, Susan. You're right. Sorry, Jack 61, you're right.
No, I was
because
just going to say, I agree. Go ahead, Doc.
Because if you have a look at the attitude of Petersen and others, and even Couchet, that despite the DNA evidence that exonerated Stephen, they still had the element of doubt.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. And I guess I've been kind of trying to look here on the live chat. I didn't see any other questions or whatever. So let me get this turned back on.
Oh, we're all good, Jack.
Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Alice.
Oh, Ronica. Hi, Ronica. Ronica's joined us in chat. Bethany's joined us in chat. Hi, Bethany. Cher has joined us as well. Cher wasn't in at the beginning, so hiya, Cher. Good to see you. Rumour has it as well. Colette and Under Your Scars. So they've all joined us since we last took a break and everything like that. So hello to everyone and thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for dropping by and helping us dive in here to this deposition. It's really interesting. And I will say this again about I said it the last time. Brenda Petersen seems to have a fairly good memory and able to recall. And there were times, especially in part one, that she was started to answer and then she stopped. You could tell. I felt like
Yeah.
she was withholding, and I think she's still doing that. I think that she knew better because here we are in 2005. She's married to a cop, which is the sheriff's brother, nonetheless. So, all right, let's get started back. Looks like we're on page 17. I'm sorry, line 17. So,
Yep.
you ready to go, everybody? Susan, everyone?
Yep. I'm ready.
All right. Good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm representing Dennis Vogel, and I have a few follow-up questions to ask. Did you?
Claude, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think one of my note pages has got to be here somewhere. It's got red all over it. It's Exhibit 89.
Go the record briefly. Off the record 228 to 229. We're back on the record.
Okay. That was a false start. We're going to start again. Did you join the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office in July of 1983?
Yes.
All right. And that was your first contact with that office. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I understand that from your testimony that you've had some contact with Gregory Allen between when you joined the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office and the July 29, 1985 assault of Penny Brinston. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And I take it that those contacts would have been in your role as a victim witness coordinator.
Yes and no.
All right. Let's start out with the yes part. As a victim witness coordinator, would you generally attend hearings that involved witnesses only?
Witnesses only?
In other words, hearings that had some witnesses that were being called to testify.
If there was a victim involved, I would be there.
All right. If the victim was going to be there to potentially testify?
Yes.
All right. For example, it would not be normal. It would not be your normal practice to go to a bail hearing where there would be initial appearance or arraignments or pretrial conferences, the types of proceedings that would not have testimony by witnesses.
I do attend hearings that do not require testimony by witnesses, yes. Anytime a victim requests our presence inside a courtroom for court support or explanation, we're there with them.
If the witness is going to be present at that proceeding.
And sometimes if they're not.
Okay.
If they request it.
I would like for you to describe for me the contacts or cases that Gregory Allen had between your commencing your work at the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office and July 29, 1985.
The two specific cases that stick out in my mind would have been an incident in which he stole women's undergarments off of a lady's clothesline. And the second case involved a teenage girl who was taking a shower and looked up and observed someone looking in the window at her. Oh.
Wow, that's creepy as hell. And
Yeah.
It's your memory that in connection with one or both of these cases, you had seen Gregory Allen.
Inside a courtroom, yes.
All right. So the clothes from the clothesline case and the teenager case where was this a peeping Tom type of case? The teenage one looking through a window or something?
Yes, he was. Yes,
And it was your memory, as you sit here today, that those had occurred prior to July 29, 1985.
prior to the Burnson incident. Yes,
Okay. Were there any occasions other than those two where you had seen Mr. Allen?
yes,
Was that not in your duties as?
correct.
All right. Describe that for me.
Back in those days, in '83 and in '85 as well, the district attorney's office did not have a receptionist. And if the two paralegals were busy and someone was at the counter, I would help them out by waiting on the person at the counter. So I had the occasion, I believe at least twice, to be approximately 3 feet away from Greg Allen.
God help you. And this again was in the time period from when you had started in July of '83 through the Bernstein assault in '85.
Pre the Burnson assault, yes.
And what were those occasions, those two times that he came to? This is at the district attorney's office.
Correct.
And what do you remember? What case it was in relation to?
His own.
The charge against him.
Correct.
So when he came in, he had a pending case.
Yes.
Okay, and if I understand your testimony, you had seen, well, when you saw the composite, you thought it looked something like Gregory Allen based upon these prior contacts.
He's the first thing that came to my mind when I saw the composite.
So this was not a situation where you had seen the composite and then he came into the office and you said, "Oh, gee, that guy looks like the composite." It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
You talked about a conversation with Detective Wettenkamp.
Yes.
Okay, is that Detective Wayne Wettenkamp?
Yes.
And he's with which department?
He was with the city. Yeah, the city police department.
City of Manitowoc Police Department.
Yes.
And was this conversation that you had with, was he a detective or an officer? What was his status at that time?
He was a detective.
Okay. Was this a conversation that you had with him in connection with some sort of court proceeding against Mr. Allen? Were you out waiting in the hallway with witnesses?
No.
Do you remember whether there was a case pending against Mr. Allen when you had this conversation with Mr. Wettenkamp?
Whether one was pending at the time? No, I don't recall that for sure.
Where did the conversation take place?
In the DA's office.
Was it preparatory for his testifying in some case against Mr. Allen?
No. I believe Wayne was waiting to probably speak to one of the attorneys, and in casual conversation, he would have said something to the effect that, "Oh, just so you know, we're watching Avery again." Or, I'm sorry, I'm getting them screwed up now. We're watching Alan again because we believe he is stalking young women at Red Arrow Beach.
Okay.
So he basically was kind of like telling me you might have another victim from Alan or a potential victim.
Were there any cases that the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department struck that? Were there any cases that the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office prosecuted against Gregory Allen after Penny Brinson's assault occurred?
I don't recall any.
So as you're sitting here today giving your testimony, your memory is that all of these cases that had been handled by the Manitowoc District Attorney's Office against Mr. Gregory Allen had all occurred prior to the Penny Brinson's assault.
Yes, yes.
Of course, and this is a long time ago that we're talking about, right?
Right.
20-some years ago. Is it your belief, as you sit here today, that there were a case pending against Gregory Allen at the time of Penny Bernstein's assault at the Manitowoc County DA's office?
Was there a case pending against
Gregory Allen.
at the same time that the Avery case was pending?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
The reason I said that, and maybe it's just the way it is written in your report, but if you look at Exhibit 91, it says, Mr. Bascom, where are we, Claude? Mr. Covelli. If you look at the third paragraph,
Page.
Mr. Bascom, first page, or Covelli. Exhibit 91 is your statement, right? Mr. Bascom, yeah. Mr. Covelli, first page, Bascom, okay. All right, here we go. Back to Covelli. Okay, yeah, the third paragraph where it says, quote, Petersen said that in the 1985, end quote. Do you find that?
Yes.
All right. Quote, Petersen said that in 1985, Allen had been in court for various things, including stalking, window peeping, watching women at Red Arrow Beach, and stealing women's undergarments, end quote. Now, in reference to that, did you say to these investigators that these various court appearances occurred in 1985 or that had occurred before 1985?
I don't believe I would have said they would have occurred in 1985 because I mean, I don't know specific dates of his cases, but when it says that, quote, Petersen said that in 19, end quote, I wouldn't have used the year 1985 because I don't think I could be specific as to when his crimes occurred.
Okay, well,
I know
Penny Bernstein assault occurred on July 29, 1985. Would you have told these investigators when you talked to them in 2002 that Allen, she did talk to them in 2000, yeah, well, okay, 2002 that, it should have been 03, that Allen was appearing in court at the same year as Penny Bernstein's assault, or were you telling them that it occurred in prior years?
Mr. Kelly, I object to the question on the basis of the use of the word of would. It's a question of fact as to what she remembers. I also think it's leading.
Okay, can you tell me what you believe you told the investigators about the timing of the Allen being in court for these various things listed in the paragraph we've just read?
I don't think I locked myself into a time. I was familiar with Allen having done these things, and I was familiar with them because he had done those kinds of things prior to the Bernstein attack.
Now, at the time of the Penny Bernstein case, did you ever sit down and read the complete investigatory file?
What I believe to have been the complete report, yes.
So you read it from beginning to end?
I read the Sheriff's Department report, what I believe to be the complete report.
All right. Did you attend the trial?
Yes.
Have you in the courtroom were you in the courtroom all through the trial?
No.
Okay. Would part of your duties take you outside to deal with witnesses and whatnot while the testimony was being taken?
Yes, except for the victim. We remain in the courtroom.
Did Beverly Badker attend any part of the trial?
I don't recall her attending any of it.
Did Jill Mertens attend any part of the trial?
No, I don't believe Jill did.
To your knowledge, did you convey any information about what you thought the testimony was or wasn't that occurred at the trial to either Badker or Mertens?
Oh, sure.
To your knowledge, did they have a source of information about the trial testimony other than yourself?
To my knowledge, I couldn't tell you for sure.
To your knowledge, strike that. As you sit here today, is it your memory that Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office had prosecuted these cases against Gregory Allen where the Manitowoc police Department was involved as the investigating agency?
Yes.
And how many such cases were there, to your knowledge?
I don't know how a number. I recall those two specific ones I told you about because I was involved with those victims.
And those were both Manitowoc Police Department cases as to opposed to the Sheriff Department cases?
Yes.
Do you remember any case involving a Susan Laurent?
No, that name doesn't sound familiar.
Why don't we make this... Oh, I'm sorry.
Mark.
Yeah, why don't we mark this? I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 120 and ask you just to take a moment to briefly skim through that complaint.
Mr. Kelly, tell me what it is, counsel.
It is case number 85 MD 412. It's an 85 MD 412, base stamp 24 and 25.
Could we go off the record for a moment?
Sure.
Off the record, 244 to 245. Back on the record.
Have you had an opportunity to skim through that exhibit?
Yes.
And that's a criminal complaint, is that correct?
Yes.
And it appears to have been filed in the Manitowoc County Clerk of Court's office on October 23, 1985.
Yes.
And it was Officer Norbert Nelson, detective, Manitowoc City Police Department, who was sworn an oath on this complaint, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
And it refers to an occurrence on October 22, 1985. Is that right?
Yes.
Is that one of the two Manitowoc County cases that you had referred to earlier?
Yes.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection as to whether that occurred before or after July 22? Or strike that. Does that refresh your recollection as to whether this occurred before or after July 29, 1985 Brimstone assault?
Well, it's in front of me in black and white, so I'll have to believe it.
Okay.
But I would have thought it occurred prior
Sure.
to.
And, this was 20 years ago, right? True?
Yes.
All right. Do you know whether there were any court appearances that you attended in connection with this particular case number 85? Well, first of all, this was a misdemeanor case. Is that correct?
Correct.
So there would normally be an initial appearance?
Yes.
Okay, and you don't know if you were at this initial appearance, correct?
I can't say for sure. You're correct.
Okay. Do you know if this case ever went to trial?
I don't recall. No.
Do you know if you ever saw Gregory Allen at any time this case was pending?
Yes.
When is that you think you saw him?
I would.
Well, strike that. Where in the case process, maybe is a better way, was it that you believe you saw Gregory Allen?
At one of his court hearings. If a victim chooses not to come to court but wants to know what happened at the court proceeding, the best way for me to get that information to them quickly is to go down to the hearing myself and observe the hearing so that I can call them immediately after, prior to them hearing about it from the media.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 117 in this case, which is a photograph of Gregory Allen, purports to be of Gregory Allen, dated, taken on October 22nd, 1985, and ask you if that's the person you saw at those hearings.
Mr. Kelly. Mr. Covelli, are you finished with Exhibit 119 for the moment?
Sure.
May I have it, please?
Oh, sure.
I have 120.
I'm sorry, 120. I apologize, 120.
Yes.
Okay, and does that photograph accurately depict what he looked like when you saw him in the connection with that case?
Yes, I probably would have guessed his hair to be a little bit longer, but
And is that what he looked like when he came into the district attorney's office on these one or two occasions where you said you had contact with him?
he would have looked a little bit more like the picture that Attorney Kelly showed me, the mugshot.
Oh, boy.
Mr. Kelly. Exhibit 118.
The mugshot.
Okay.
Mr. Kelly. Just please get the exhibit number.
Exhibit
119.
Well, actually, he didn't show you Exhibit 119.
Mr. Kelly, it's going to be 118.
Oh,
Mr. Cavelli. Well, let's get it out here so that he showed you.
with the longer hair.
Exhibit 118, is that correct?
Yeah, with the longer hair.
I'm going to show you the picture that you said he looked more like is dated as a photograph taken August 30th, 1986. Do you believe that you may have seen Mr. Gregory Allen as he appeared in Exhibit 119 sometime in 1986?
I probably did because he's definitely more familiar in 118 and 119. His hair was generally longer than it is in 117.
And I don't want to mislead you. I believe that Exhibits 118 and 119 are the same photographs, but merely one is
Clear.
cropped out the rest of the document. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Do you know when we've taken away Exhibit 120, but do you know when case number 85 MD 412 was concluded or resolved?
No.
Okay. Do you know how it was resolved?
No.
Is it your belief that the occasions where you saw Gregory Allen in the district attorney's office rather than in court was related to the case number 85 MD 412?
Say that again. I'm sorry. I'm losing you. The one that the criminal complaint I read?
Yeah. Mr. Covelli, I'm going to show you, and I'll show you my Bascom. I'll give it back to her. Covelli, all right. Yeah. And you're right. Remembering numbers is hard. So the one complaint, Exhibit 120, the times that you said he came in and he looked similar to photograph 117. Do you believe that was in connection with something to do with the case that's the subject of the complaint in Exhibit 120?
Mr. Kelly, I'm going to object to leading. I almost have to put you under oath, Mr. Cavelli. It's like it's not even a question.
I believe it's I don't believe it's leading. It's open-ended. But you may answer, ma'am.
You're asking me if I knew whether or not he was up in the DA's office on this case?
On those occasions that you saw him.
I would not be able to tell you which cases he was up there on.
Did the case of that's in the complaint Exhibit 120 involve any allegation of violence?
Without looking at a full police report and just what's in here, I couldn't tell you.
Okay. Do you know what the next contact the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office had with any charge against Gregory Allen after Exhibit 120?
What it was specifically?
Yes.
No.
Do you remember there being any actual jury trials involving Gregory Allen at any time while you were at the district attorney's office?
No, I don't recall.
Do you remember in 1986 Mr. Allen being charged with a battery to a police officer?
No.
Do you have any memory of a jury trial or that charge?
On that charge, no, because if I don't remember the charge,
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Petersen Exhibit 121, which was Exhibit 65B in the prior deposition, and ask you if you recall seeing Gregory Allen in 1986 and whether his appearance was as shown in that exhibit.
I don't remember Greg Allen ever looking this clean cut. No.
Okay. Are his general facial appearances in exhibits 117 and 121 similar?
From a woman's point of view, close, but he started to put on weight and his hair's longer.
Do you have any reason to believe, as you sit here today, that Exhibit 117 does not accurately depict what Gregory Allen looked like in October of 1985?
Do I have any reason to believe it's not him?
That it doesn't accurately show what he looked like at that time?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no.
Do you have any reason to believe that Exhibit 121 does not accurately depict how Gregory Allen, what he looked like on October 28, 1986?
No, but no.
I think you may have misspoken. This is dated March. Covelli. Oh, I'm sorry. Bascom, 28th of 86. Mr. Covelli. Yeah, let me rephrase that. I'm looking at it upside down. Exhibit 121 is a photograph that purportedly was taken on March 28, 1986. Do you have any reason to believe that the photograph in that exhibit do not accurately depict what Gregory Allen looked like at that time?
No.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as Exhibit 122, which is another record from the Clerk of Courts, Bates stamped at 86 MD 303, Bates stamped 45 and 46. And why don't we go off the record and just give you a chance to skim through that?
Off the record, 258 till 3. Reporter, back on the record.
Showing you what has been marked as Exhibit 122, have you had a chance to review that document?
Yes.
And does that appear to be a criminal complaint filed in the case 86 MD 303 on or about August 11th, 1986?
Yes.
And was the complaining officer were Detective Wayne Wettenkamp
Yes.
from the Manitowoc City Police Department?
Yes.
Is that the same Detective Wettenkamp that you had referred to earlier in your testimony?
Yes.
And does this refer to an incident that occurred on August 3, 1986?
Yes.
And is this a case against Gregory A. Allen?
Yes.
Prior to seeing this document, did you have any recall of this case ever pending in the Manitowoc County District Attorney's Office?
No.
Is it possible that your conversation with Wayne Wettenkamp occurred in connection with while this case, the one identified in Exhibit 122, was pending?
Mr. Kelly, objection. Which conversation?
Is it possible that you had a conversation with Wayne Wettenkamp in connection with the case identified in Exhibit 122?
It's possible, but he's not the officer on the case.
Is it possible that he was going to be a witness?
No.
He was the, I see. He was the complaining officer that filled out the complaint.
He was the court officer at that time.
As a court officer, would he be the person that would have contact with the district attorney's office with respect to this complaint, the filing of the complaint?
He would have been the officer from that agency who would have signed all criminal complaints during the time he was the court officer.
He would be the officer that would bring the police reports in, discuss the case with the DA about charging, and so forth, correct?
No. He would be the one who would carry the reports over. The DA's office would charge it out. And the next time Wettenkamp would see it would be when they need a court officer to sign and swear to it. So he doesn't actually discuss it with them.
And let's see, I lost my pictures. Exhibit 119, the photograph of Mr. Gregory Allen with a beard was taken on or about August 3, 1986, correct?
Yes.
And that is the same day as the incident identified in Exhibit 122. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you have any contact with Gregory Allen in connection with any of these cases prosecuted against him by the Manitowoc County DA's office after July 29, 1985?
It's possible.
Would it in fact be likely in light of the various complaints that I've shown you?
It could have been if the victim requested, yes.
In your statement, Exhibit 91, Bascom, let's get it in front of her. Covelli, sure. The fourth paragraph, you refer to being familiar with Stephen Avery because you had worked with Sandy Morris. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you said that Avery was charged with exposing himself to her.
Correct.
And what do you recall about that?
On numerous occasions as she was driving to work, he would be standing in his doorway or near the road, exposing himself to her. And he scared her, obviously. And at one of the days when she was on her way to work, he tried to, I believe, run her off the road and pointed a weapon at her.
And we pointed a weapon at her. Did he say anything?
I don't recall that part. I remember there was a weapon involved.
And was there any, did you consider that to involve violence?
Yes, a weapon? Yes.
Did you have any other information about Mr. Avery's background at that time?
I don't believe that Stephen Avery was a very familiar name to me. I mean, the Avery name is familiar, but this is the case that I remember.
From what you said, I take it that you had been on the jury. You would have voted for not guilty, finding Mr. Avery's trial involving the Penny Brinson assault.
Definitely.
In fact, did any of the jurors vote that way?
I'm not privy to that information.
You don't know what the verdict was.
Well, the verdict was guilty, so
Okay.
on the Brinson attack,
Right.
yeah.
And did the jury hear any evidence about Mr. Avery's alibi?
Yes.
Did they hear the same? Well, was there evidence about his alibi that you're aware of that wasn't presented to the jury?
No.
I was trying to find your list here. Was evidence presented to the jury about the timing of the trip from where the crime occurred to Green Bay to Shopko?
Yes.
Did the jury hear, to your knowledge, the same information that you understood about how that trip was timed?
Yes.
Did the jury hear expert testimony about witness identification?
Expert testimony?
If you know.
Who are you considering an expert? Like, do you consider a detective an expert?
Well, let me ask this. Did the jury see the composite?
I believe so.
Was the jury offered an opportunity or an explanation by the defense that the composite didn't look, they thought, like Stephen Avery?
Did the defense present that?
Was evidence presented to the jury on that subject?
Yes, I believe so.
Was the appearance of Mr. Avery's hair a subject of evidence at the trial?
Yes.
Was the subject of whether he was or was not wearing underwear a subject of testimony at trial?
Yes.
Are you critical of the defense lawyers for failing to bring forth some of these aspects that concern to you at the trial?
Was I critical of how the defense handled themselves?
Yeah. Are you saying that the defense failed to bring forth evidence about the composite that you thought should have been brought forth?
No.
Are you critical of the defense for failing to bring forth evidence about the appearance of Mr. Avery's hair at the trial?
I thought they did, so no.
Are you critical about what the defense offered as far as the testimony of the alibi witnesses?
No.
Would you agree that the reasonable person could, on the evidence offered at trial, have found beyond a reasonable doubt that Stephen Avery committed the crime charged in the Penny Brinson assault?
Do I believe that a reasonable person could have? Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
because you saw it, right?
That's right.
Did Penny Brinson at any time prior to the exoneration based on DNA evidence indicate to you under uncertainty that Stephen Avery was the person that assaulted her on July 29, 1985?
Mr. Kelly, objection, foundation. I don't know if they ever talked. Mr. Glenn, privilege issue here too. And I believe that there's a privilege that you should raise.
Covelli, what privilege? Witness privilege?
Mr. Glenn, yeah, and the privileges exist between victim of the crime and victim witness counselor.
Covelli. Okay, I think we'll need a ruling on that. I'm not going to press the issue so that we don't want to misstep on anybody's rights.
Mr. Glenn, and let me be clear, I don't even know if we have the authority to assert it.
Covelli, I understand.
Mr. Glenn, it's just something that I think we should be aware of.
Covelli, well, in deference to the witness and not wanting to get the witness develop an issue with the witness, or myself for that matter, we'll defer that question. Why don't we go off the record a second? I think I'm done. I just want to be able to look at my notes.
The record 313 to 315. Report back on the record.
I'm going to show you Exhibit 91 again, which is the interview notes by Ms. Lehman and Ms. Strauss that occurred in your interview on September 23, 2003, and refer to the third last paragraph. Do you see that?
Mr. Kelly, this is Exhibit 91.
Correct. Did you tell the investigators this? Quote, Petersen described Vogel as an excellent attorney and did not know if Vogel did anything intentionally wrong, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And is that your belief today?
Yes.
I think in your statement you had also indicated you were not aware of any other suspects involving Penny Brinson assault other than Stephen Avery. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Do you remember Alan Pinke being a suspect?
His name is familiar, but I can't say that I remember him as being related in any way to the attack on Penny.
What do you remember about Alan Pinke? You said his name was familiar.
I remember him as being fond of little boys, is what I remember of him.
Okay. Do you remember him having charges against him with respect to women?
He could have. I mean, his name's familiar, but
Describe what Mr. Alan Pinke looks like.
I couldn't.
Do you know whether you ever seen Alan Pinke at as of July 29, 1985?
No, I don't know.
Do you remember if Alan Pinke was determined to have an alibi at the time of the July 29, 1985 Penny Brinson attack?
No, I know nothing of him in that.
Do you know if there were any other, well, if any persons other than Mr. Pinke may have been checked out with respect to the Penny Brinson attack?
Not to my knowledge.
Is it possible that you had read about such things when you reviewed the reports, just no longer remember?
Mr. Kelly, when she reviewed what reports and when, counsel?
Covelli, all right. Well, you had earlier indicated that you had read at least some of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department reports that were in the district attorney's file.
Right.
Relating to the Penny Brinson assault. My question is it possible that you sit here, as you sit here today, some 20 years later, that you may have forgotten about other persons that were suspects and that they were checked out
Counsel,
by the sheriff's department?
Mr. Kelly, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm referring to the same thing you are, I believe the witness testified that she reviewed the complete Sheriff Department investigatory report file. Sorry, let me start that over. Line 3, Mr. Kelly, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm referring to the same thing you are, I believe the witness testified that she reviewed the complete Sheriff Department investigatory report file at the same time that she was reviewing the file, the DA's file, before the case went to trial. Not just some of it. I believe her testimony was she read the entire file.
Mr. Cavalli, whatever you reviewed in 1985.
I reviewed what I believe to be a complete report.
Okay.
I believe is what I said.
All right. Is it possible, as you sit here today, some 20 years later, that those reports may have contained references to other persons that were investigated by the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, but you just don't remember anymore?
I would have to say it's possible.
But you think it's unlikely?
I don't recall any.
Then you certainly don't recall Alan Pinke being among them.
Nope.
Cavalli, I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Couldn't hear you, Alice.
Is there anything else?
Well, you guys?
Bascom, I don't have anything.
Mayor, no.
I've got some.
Off the record 320, back on the record 320. We're back on the record, Mr. Kelly.
Ms. Petersen, I want to follow up on this review of the file that you believe to be the complete Sheriff's Department investigatory report file. Do you recall your testimony about that?
Yes.
Was that an investigatory report file that was part of the district attorney's file in connection with the prosecution of Stephen Avery in the Burnson sexual assault case?
Yes.
Where did you go to get it to review it physically?
I would have taken the file out of the filing cabinet and read the report.
How proximate to the time of the trial do you recall doing that, if you can fix it?
I would have probably said earlier on, like prior prelim, so that when I was down with the victim, I kind of have a sense of the case.
Do you have any recollection of finding in the investigatory file or the DA's file any investigatory reports concerning Gregory Allen?
I do not.
Okay. You were questioned by Mr. Cavelli about Exhibit 122, criminal complaint case file number 86MD303. Do you see that?
Yes.
And you gave some testimony about the role and function of Detective Wittenkamp with respect to that document. Do you recall that?
Yes.
That document does not concern Red Arrow Park. Is that correct?
Good point. Correct.
And the conversation that you told us about with Detective Wettenkamp involved Gregory Allen in respect to being surveilled at Red Arrow Park. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And did I hear correctly when Mr. Cavelli was questioning you that in your conversations with Detective Wettenkamp, one of the things he said to you is that you might have another victim from Greg Allen?
Right.
Have there been several victims of Greg Allen that have been known to you and Detective Wettenkamp that you discussed with him?
No. Maybe I need to clarify. They were watching him in case he was going to do something. So I think he meant it in the context that there could be another case coming if we observe him doing something. I don't think they had a specific victim in mind, if that's what you're asking.
And that other case that might be coming, you believe he was telling you, would be like some of the prior cases involving sexually assaulted behavior by Mr. Allen.
More of the stalking and peeping types, yeah.
Okay, meaning that's what you think Wettenkamp was referring to when you said other.
Right.
All right. Do you have Exhibit 120 here? Here we go. When are the events said to have occurred that are the basis of that complaint?
October 22nd of 1985.
And do you recall, with reference to the July 29th, 1985 assault of Penny Berntsen, when the actual trial against Stephen Avery for the Berntsen assault proceeded to trial?
Do I remember the date of the trial?
Do you remember the month of the trial?
No.
Do you recall whether it was before or after the events that are described in October in that exhibit?
Well, that would have been a quick trial, but I suppose it's possible.
In fact, isn't it true that the trial of Stephen Avery occurred in December of 1985?
Mr. Mayor, foundation form.
You may answer.
I don't know.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to take a look at Exhibit 91 again. Turn to the last page, second to last page of that exhibit, if you would.
I think that's it.
And Mr. Covelli asked you whether you made the statement to the DCI agents that you did not know if Vogel did anything intentionally wrong. Do you see that?
Yes.
And I believe you affirmed that that is what you told the agents.
Yes.
And you then went on, according to this statement, and said, quote, Petersen again relayed that the sheriff put a lot of pressure on him, end quote.
Yes.
And did you relay that information to the agents in explanation of the fact that you were not sure whether or not Vogel did anything intentionally wrong?
Bascom and Covelli, objections.
Mr. Mayor, argumentative.
Covelli misstates our testimony.
You may answer.
Okay, I don't understand your question.
In other words, these two sentences here are in one paragraph that the agents are saying you made to them. And I'm asking you if there's a relationship in your mind at the time you make the statements to the agents between the second sentence and the first sentence in that paragraph.
Is there a relationship between the two statements?
Yes.
Yes.
Tell us what, in your mind, was the relationship between the pressure Tell us what, in your mind, was the relationship between the pressure being put by the sheriff on Vogel and the fact that you told the agents that you did not know if Vogel did anything intentionally wrong.
Well, I don't know if Vogel did anything intentionally wrong, but again, I stated to them I felt the sheriff put a lot of pressure on the DA.
Okay. Mr. Covelli asked you some questions about evidence that was heard by the jury in respect to several of the concerns you told us about that you had concerning the prosecution of Stephen Avery. Do you recall that?
Yes.
To your knowledge, did the jury hear any evidence about Gregory Allen having been surveilled by the City of Manitowoc Police Department in the summer of 1985?
Not while I was in the courtroom.
Did they hear anything about Gregory Allen's sexually assaulted behavior?
Mm,
Did they hear anything about Gregory Allen's propensity for...
I didn't answer that because I thought he was objecting. I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, yeah, and I was going to object to the form of the question because I think it misstates the evidence.
Okay.
I don't know whether there was evidence involving...
That's fine, and it's not for you to talk about the evidence.
I'm just doing what you're doing, counsel.
Oh, hell no, you're not. Besides, this is my deposition, Mr. Mayor, not yours, so fuck right off.
Not taking any of his shit, is he, at all?
Mm-mm.
That's why I love these guys. They are
I love
badass to the
Kelly
bone.
too. Yeah.
Excuse me. Did the jury hear any evidence about Gregory Allen's sexually assaultive behavior to your knowledge?
Mr. Mayor, same objection.
Bascom, object to the form.
Not to my knowledge.
Did the jurors hear anything about Gregory Allen's propensity for violence?
Bascom, object to the form.
Mr. Mayor, same. Yeah, same objection.
Not while I was in the courtroom.
Did the jury hear anything about Gregory Allen's criminal history at the time that Penny Burnson was assaulted?
Not to my knowledge.
Did the jury hear anything about the investigation and surveillance being conducted by detectives of the City of Manitowoc Police Department concerning Gregory Allen?
Bascom, object to the form. It's been asked and answered.
Again, no.
Did
Not to my knowledge.
the jury hear anything from you or Beverly Badker that you believe that Exhibit 116 looked more like Gregory Allen than Stephen Avery?
Covelli, I'm going to object. Assumes that such testimony would ever be admissible.
And I think it would be, but we'll ask. Did the jury hear any such evidence?
I was not a witness in the case.
But you were in the courtroom.
But you asked me if the jury heard that Bev and I thought it looked like Avery.
Right. And you're saying they did not.
No, I was not a witness in the case, nor was Bev.
Okay. Exhibit 91 again. If you would go to the third full paragraph on the first page, Mr. Covelli asked you some questions about the statement that's included here that, quote, in 1985, Allen had been in court for various things, including stalking, window keeping, watching women at Red Arrow Beach, and stealing women's undergarments, end quote. Is that right?
That statement's in there, yes.
And I believe your testimony was that you did not look yourself into the 19. I believe your testimony was that you did not lock yourself into the 1985 date when you spoke with agents.
I don't believe I did, no.
But did you at least indicate that 1985 was a possible date for these events?
I don't recall using a date with him.
Do you have any reason to believe that they would simply pick the date without having been informed of that by you?
Covelli and Bascom, object to form. Covelli calls for speculation.
Mayor, Foundation, how would she know?
I'm answering now?
Okay.
You want me to let you know or to tell you whether or not I think the agents just put that in there?
Right.
Covelli, objection.
Well,
Based on your exchange of the information with them.
Covelli, objection, calls for speculation.
I don't know. Deb Strauss was the only one in the room the full time and the only one taking notes, so I don't.
Do you recall whether you told Miss Strauss by 1985, Allen had been in court for various things, including stalking, window peeping, watching women at Red Arrow Beach, and stealing women's undergarments?
I probably would have said prior to the Burnson assault.
Okay. The next sentence then says, quote, Petersen stated that the Manitowoc Police Department was watching Allen because of his behavior, end quote. Do you see that?
Yes.
And was that something else that you told the investigating agents had been the case before Penny Burnson was assaulted?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Covelli reviewed various photographs with you and the dates of those photographs, and I'm going to try to get them all here, make sure we've got them all.
Bascom, here.
Here we go. Okay. So what I'm going to put out here on the table is Exhibit 117, 118, 119
Which we decided was the same.
in different formats.
Okay.
And 120 And as I understand it, your testimony is that of the several photographs. Well, strike that. Would you say it's fair to say, obviously, that over the period of time, 1985 and 1986, Mr. Allen's appearance changes to some degree?
Yes.
All right. And would you further say that of the several photographs of Mr. Allen, that the one that most resembles Exhibit 116, the composite, is Exhibit 118?
And 119.
Okay. And as I understand it, your testimony about your immediate reaction after the Burnson assault, that the person who did it was Greg Allen, wasn't based on any of these photographs. It was based on your view of the composite drawing, one copy of which is Exhibit 116.
Correct. I never saw any of these prior to today.
Okay. And in turn, when you looked at the composite drawing and said to yourself and subsequently others, quote unquote, that's Greg Allen, that in turn was based on your own physical observation of Greg Allen
Yes.
prior to July 29, 1985.
Prior to the attack on Penny.
Okay,
Baskin, gentlemen,
that's it.
Baskin, we're done.
Okay. There being no further questions, this deposition is concluded at 3.
Now, you stand up and leave right away, so
Hold on, please.
I'm going to run.
Hold on.
Sorry.
The deposition's concluded at 3:36 p.m. off the record.
I'm going to
Gee.
run. I want out of here.
there's 21
Fuck outta here.
21 pages of index, so that's
Yeah.
all that follows.
Crazy.
So. Well, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Some new names
I
got
sure
popped
do
in
like Glenn and Kelly, man. Sorry.
Yeah, but they sure weren't half sticking up for fucking Gregory Allen. Are
Oh,
you
yeah.
sure his hair was like that? Are you sure he looked like that? Now remember, this is 86. And I'm sitting here and I'm swearing at my telly. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is how they're trying to get round no having Gregory Allen mentioned when he should have been the prime suspect.
Well, yeah, you know, to me, he was trying to confuse her. He really was. That's what I got from it. Doc, is Doc
Yep.
still here?
Yes. Alice is 100% correct. I've never heard as much garbage ever. This is a case where there was more sympathy and more leeway and more rope given to Gregory Allen than ever was given to Stephen Avery. I've never heard of a case in which a vicious known sexual predator was given so much, what can I say, benefit of the doubt. I've never ever seen a case like this. And Stephen Avery, who was never at that beach at that day, what they were trying to do is to cloud the case. They were trying to cloud Brenda's recollections, basically to say, look, could it be possible that the jury got this right? You know, it was an honest mistake, nothing to worry about, essentially letting the state off the hook. Now, reverse it. Imagine them trying to give Stephen Avery some leeway. It would never, ever happen. And yet here we are, hearing this deposition in which so much element of doubt is putting into this case that, oh no, you know, maybe they just got it wrong. It couldn't have been Gregory Allen. What did you think? Etc., etc. I've never encountered this. But when it came to the 2005 case, no leeway, none of this was shown towards Stephen Avery. They put the foot on the throat and never let go. My final comment is this. I can't understand Brenda's position where she goes, oh yeah, the composite picture looked like Gregory Allen. I think she must be the only person who believes that's the case, right? How in the hell can that picture, the composite, look like Gregory Allen, where it's a clear copying of a photograph of Stephen Avery when he was arrested for the assault on his cousin, Sandra Morris?
Well,
I can't work it out.
The other girls felt the same way. And at this time, Doc, Stephen's hair was straight and
Yep.
Gregory's
great.
was curly. And I think it had a lot to do with the hair.
I do too.
Oh, that is definitely a possibility, but we're missing one crucial photo, the one that no one can find, and that's the photograph of Gregory Allen prior to 1985, the one
That's
that has
right.
gone missing.
They deep sixed that son of a bitch. It's in a shredder somewhere
Correct.
out in a landfill
Ron-
on fire.
Prior to
Yeah.
July. Yeah.
Ronica in chat. Hi, Ronica. Nice to see you. Got questions. Is it true, or do we know 100% when Stephen was arrested at his home? Did he ever tell his wife he was being arrested for assault on Penny Bernstein on the beach? And is it fact that this was said in front of the police?
No.
No.
He said they're arresting me for the murder of a woman, possible murder of a woman.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And that's why the sheriff said, oh yeah, he's admitting guilt. He's admitting guilt. Correct.
Well,
That's why they nabbed him.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
mean,
they're
it's just bloody ridiculous. I mean, the way that they were defending and trying to make her think that she didn't see what she saw, and then as soon as it went on to Stephen, it was like, oh, but Stephen had this and Stephen did that, and you know, and it's like, oh my God, there is complete differences. Stephen wasn't a fucking peeping Tom. Stephen wasn't going about stealing women's fucking underwear after washing line. You know what I mean? Things like that. He was a young man who was struggling with a family with 5 kids. You know what I mean? It's just, it's ridiculous the way they're trying to make them chalk and cheese. You know what I mean? Or make Stephen out to be worse.
But Alice, you made an excellent point. Look what they've done in 2005. They've transposed Gregory Allen onto Stephen Avery. They've reversed the roles. They've done it. Now Stephen is the vicious sexual predator. And oh, by the way, we're not going to talk about Gregory Allen at all. Isn't that remarkable? They've imprinted Gregory Allen on Stephen Avery in 2005.
They did it for months. The media did, in cooperation
Yes.
with, of course, what the cops wanted and Kratz. So much of that media reporting, I wish we had it all, but we don't. So much of it disappeared before it got captured, but we have a lot. And they literally did exactly what you said, Doc. They drug him through the mud. They hypersexualized him. He's violent and all that shit.
Yeah, and just as rumor has it, reminds us and all, she says, it makes my stomach turn that Gregory Allen never faced any repercussions for Penny Bernstein's assault.
It sure didn't.
And that's what we've got to keep reminding newcomers as well that are just joining us and things like that, who are just learning about the case and everything as well. Gregory Allen has never been charged for Penny's assault, even though it was proven by DNA that he did it. And the fact for that is because he was already in another jail serving a 60-year sentence
Statute
was it assault?
statute of limitations had ran out. That's the reason they couldn't charge him.
Yeah.
Which should not have applied.
No.
Since
Shouldn't have applied.
with what happened with everything that occurred.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Susan. And because Gregory Allen was never charged, regardless of the statute of limitations, Penny Benson has never, ever had justice in her assault. And I think that's criminal in itself.
Yeah.
Should. Absolutely should be.
Yep. She was beaten to a bloody pulp.
No, he beat the hell out of her.
She's lucky she didn't die, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Kasurik and Vogel in to do that time for that one, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree with you, Cherie.
James Craig says, I have to wonder if Sandra Morris made up those allegations about Stephen and his lewd conduct. Yeah, I completely agree, James. Yoga, that could be very possible. She hated him that much. She was bad mouthing him every time she had a drink in her, and she was out at the pubs and everything like that. She was going about town, slagging him off to anybody and everybody. You know what I mean?
That's the reason he pulled her over with the gun, with the car.
Yeah.
Because she was telling lies about him in the bars.
Exactly, Susan. And I guarantee you, one of the lies is that Stephen was playing with himself as she was going past. I'd like to know how that works. If Stephen stayed where he stayed, where did he stay in '85? Where was he residing? Was he on the
near each other?
And
right?
This stuff
kind of across the road.
This stuff allegedly happened, in winter. And I can tell you, winter in Wisconsin is like winter here.
Right. And it's like 5 a.m. she goes to work. So it's totally dark outside.
And cold as hell. Freeze your. I mean, to me, it sounds more like something that Gregory Allen would do, because that's what he did. He exposed himself
to
does. All kinds of young girls and teenagers and women. He didn't care. The guy's a monster. He's an absolute monster.
Yeah. And they've just, like Doc says, they've just projected it all onto Stephen. And they've made him out to be the monster that Gregory Allen actually is. You know?
Absolutely. I'm looking
at
here.
At the same token, sorry, Jax, at the same token, with all the sexting scandal that occurred with Kratz, he cries like a stuck pig. Oh no, you can't mention that. It's irrelevant. It's got nothing to do with nothing. And yet, isn't it amazing how Kratz wanted to dredge up all of Stephen Avery's past misdemeanors and bring him into court? And thank God the judge threw them out. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? Don't point a finger at me if you're just as guilty as I am. And, Kratz was basically trying to whitewash what he did and yet trying to dredge up all Stephen Avery's past to make him look worse than what he really was. It's truly shocking.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm looking ahead here for our next time we get into depositions. Let's see here.
When Willis said to Stephen, "You're probably the most dangerous man ever to set foot in this courtroom," you should have been saying that to Gregory Allen.
Absolutely.
Yep.
9:38.
And that comment by Willis made no sense whatsoever.
No. Your crimes are escalating.
Yeah. I mean.
Well, you know that Willis was looking directly at Kratz, right? When you read that out.
Should have been.
Yeah.
Just because Kratz is the one who indeed had crimes that escalated. His crimes were the ones that were escalating.
Yeah,
And
Kratz was out of control.
yeah, but we don't
Totally.
hear about that.
Oh yeah. Okay, coming up
and
for.
my-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Doug.
I'm going to say, isn't it interesting how the guilters go apeshit when Kathleen Zellner is trying to get Stephen out of prison? Stephen writes these letters, etc., etc. And yet no one batters an eyelid when Gregory Allen's probation comes up every 2 years. This is a vicious, vicious sexual predator who may walk on the streets a free man. And yet the guilters go up in arms when Kathleen Zellner is trying to prove, hey, my client didn't do this. Brendan Dassey didn't do this. It must be a weird system in America whereby leeway, sympathy is given to a vicious sexual predator, right? That we know he committed these crimes. And yet Stephen has been arguing, Kathleen Zellner has been arguing, Brendan Dassey's attorneys have been arguing. Guys, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. How does the system work there in the US? I'm at a loss.
It's a media-driven thing. This relationship, and remember, I mean, we talk about the 1991 Minnesota case. We talk about it all the time. And it's never mentioned in the media or what he did. I mean, he beat the hell out of that woman too. He beat the shit out of her, as bad or worse than he did Penny Bernstein. And
yep, that's right.
And assault. Yep, and assaulted her. But it's nowhere in the media. It never gets reported. And all these other things that he did that were really truly felonies that somehow Vogel reduced down to misdemeanors and basically let him go, slap on the wrist. I'll never understand it. And there's no doubt if they had come out at trial or during those depositions about the 1991 case, it would have blown everything apart. And they could not allow that. There's no way. So anyway, I just wanted to flash up briefly before we get out of here. September, there are 4 depositions. Mark Rohr Part 2 is one of them. And I'm sure we're going to get a whole lot more. I don't recall. Cherie can be get
God
reminded.
help us.
Cherie can get reminded. Well, maybe we'll do some switcheroo. Maybe Cherie can read Mark Rohr's part.
Every time I think of Mark Rohr and his depositions, I think of when he's trying to loosen his collar. And so he's so uncomfortable.
Yeah,
if there'd have been see him choking.
Yeah.
If there'd have been a porthole there, he would have jumped in it.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. So anyway, we got Rohr, and then
vials of sweat.
Griesbach.
Oh God, greasy back.
Yep, he's a couple hours, hour and a half, whatever. And then we got this guy. This Vernon Clement, and I'm pretty sure he's a detective, retired detective from Manitowoc County. And then there's one more. I want to make sure I get the actual times right. I believe it's this guy here. Yeah, it is. Mr. David Dvorak. I believe that's an ex-husband at this. Yeah, I believe they're divorced at this time. I can't remember, but he's another law enforcement officer that was with Manitowoc County. So there's 4. None of them are super long, but we'll do what we normally do. We'll do them if we have to do one at a time. That's fine. I just want to get through them because October's going to get really interesting because there's Colburn, there's Link, there's Shea. It's just a whole menagerie. So
all the good ones.
Are there any more by police department, the Manitowoc Police Department officers, or no?
City police?
Yeah, I just want to know where they were called away that day, so that they weren't available to be watching.
Well, you got to remember, and we found this out actually last year when we got these actual reports. The surveillance that was on Gregory was not a 24/7 thing. It was more of a keep tabs on him kind of thing. As you're out, drive by his house, look for his car. You know, if you notice his car somewhere else, make note of it. That kind of thing. Unfortunately, it was not just a watch him all the time. It was a keep tabs on him kind of thing, which is, again, unfortunate.
Oh,
This other about getting called away, as far as I know, there's no explanation ever given about that. Just another call that they had to respond to. Like I said, these weren't dedicated to just watch him all the time. It was as just part of your daily routine, nightly routine kind of thing.
I'm
Now,
suspicious that was somehow
set up.
Yeah, thank you.
Possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely possible because one way or the other, those depositions were going to get stopped. I fully believe that. I've believed it for years, and that nothing has ever changed my mind about that. Nothing. October.
Vogel and Zurich should have been first.
Yeah, but to really lay the foundation, though, Al, I don't disagree with you, but to really lay that foundation and really put the rope around these guys' neck.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah.
Go ahead, Doug.
You can't have Kaseric and Vogel first. The reason why is what they were doing, Alice, was mounting up all the anecdotal evidence against both Kaseric and Vogel. And as a consequence of that, they were going to absolutely read out a shopping list to both Vogel and Kaseric to the point where they couldn't deny it, because the attorneys would have said, oh, yeah, but this person said this and this. It was backed up by that person there. What have you got to say about it, Kaseric? What about you, Vogel? So in other words, you make the situation so unpalatable. In the end, all they're going to keep on saying is, I don't recall, I don't recall. Basically admitting their guilt, their complicity, but they can't actually say it. Do you know what I mean? But all the anecdotal evidence points to their guilt. Do you know what I mean? So they couldn't have gone first. Going first means that they would have been let off the hook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
And then
I see what you mean.
They may have even had to resubpoena them for a part 2, like they did Roar and some of these other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Ronica in chat has got a comment. She says, Penny said in a documentary on YouTube, the police asked her if she wanted to press charges, but because he was in jail for another crime, she didn't want to relive the shame of another trial.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I want to try to show, well, yeah, it'd probably just be easier if I try to show this to you. I don't know how do I do that? Maybe I can do it this way. Hold on just a second.
James is asking, was Gregory Allen sent to attack Penny? Don't know. I think he maybe just took a chance. It was in his MO. He just did it when he felt like it, and just unfortunately Penny was in the wrong place at the wrong time and he got her. I don't think he would have cared who it was.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right, because there's no way. You know, I've often heard theories about, oh, look, it was a deliberate setup for Stephen. Problem is they couldn't control where Stephen was at any time, right? If the person who perpetrated this could control where Stephen was, then yeah, you might say, okay, Gregory Allen was sent in to set Stephen up. But when you think about it, the authorities had no control of where Stephen was. Plus, he had between 16 and 22 alibi witnesses, and also he was at a shop with a timestamp of where exactly he was. So if you can't control
and
the person,
still got him.
and they still got him. And if you can't control the person that you're trying to set up, nah, that's complete utter garbage. Gregory Allen, he's a vicious sexual predator. He has no care. And in his mind, he must be thinking, how much can I actually get away with? Hell, I feel like I'm bulletproof. I'm doing all these misdemeanors. I'm committing all these crimes. I go and talk to the DA and he keeps on diminishing my crimes. Wow, that's like getting a free pass. It's truly remarkable.
Well, it's enabling, really, Doc. I mean, to me, it is.
Yeah,
Correct.
and fishy as hell. Yes, me.
Yes, it is. It is.
Well, just to add to what Doc's talking about, I've been watching this show. Actually, apparently it's been on for several years on ID, and I've never watched a single episode until last week, and it's called Signs of a Psychopath.
Oh, I watched a few episodes.
Oh
yeah.
my God. They interview these
Jack,
people.
I can't believe you haven't watched that already.
I've never seen it.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Sorry.
but the common theme, no, you're fine. The common theme, if anybody hasn't watched it, they interview these people, and typically most of them, that's pretty much the entire episode, and these cops are talking to these people, and they absolutely do not care about anything except how they can accomplish their goal. They don't see other people as people. There's zero empathy, none. Their wiring is so bad. Now, some of them, there's been a few I've watched that, yeah, they're right on the edge. But some of these others get on these killing sprees. They absolutely do not care about anything except what can satisfy their next high of killing someone or harming them or whatever. And that's Gregory Allen. I can tell you right now, that's Allen. He does not care. Anyway, I've got this screen here pulled up. These are all the depositions for October. There's that many there. So you can kind of tell that they were really gearing up for war, for Vogel, Kasork and Vogel. That's my opinion. You have Link. This Ramona Marcel, that's a great deposition because it details the lies, absolute lies that Manitowoc County did. Holy shit.
Who is she? Who is Ramona?
I can't remember the original details of them talking to her, but there's a report. I know you remember Christina talking about this, that Avery had kidnapped this 11-year-old girl up in some area not too terribly far away.
Yeah.
And that he was in a van. Yeah. And she wrote this.
By Krivitz.
That's right. And she wrote this fake report that she had talked to Ramona. And it was a complete lie. Peter Conrad was involved in that too. And then we have who we have. We got Sandra Morse coming up. Andy Colburn. This Fred Nicholson, he's another interesting character because Cachet had interviewed this guy. He had interviewed 3 of them back in '96 after this alleged call. There's some conversation with kind of beating around the bush conversation, but conversation nonetheless. Yeah, this is, I think, Judy Dvorak, Yonda. She, whatever, not my verbiage woman. And then Ken Petersen, Larry Conrad. He was I think at this point he's retired, but he was a detective back then. And of course, as you all remember, him and Brenda Petersen dated off and on for a couple of years, according to her testimony. And then the famous The Pencil.
He was a detective on the case.
Yep. And The Pencil. Yeah, he's the last one, the 26th or whatever the hell the date is. Let's see. Yep, 26th of October. He was the last one in October. So anyway, that's where we stand. I just wanted to show that there's a bunch in October. 4 in September and however hell many in October. So it's going to take us some time to get through them all because I want to get back to the calls. I want to get back to the calls, and I want to get into what I got. I'm not going to attempt to go through all of the queso dispatch that we have because there's just no way. And some of them they're irrelevant anyway. I'm going to concentrate mainly on channel 6 and channel 7. We may venture off a little bit into channel 1, but 6 and 7 are the main two lines. Channel 1 is radio, but most of it is irrelevant. But there is some that we'll pick up from that as well. That's another project because I'm pretty much done with the 2022 MTSO stuff. So give me just 1 second. Okay, got that out of the way. Anyway, any questions, any comments? I want to get us out of here if everybody's good.
Tina in chat says, and ma'am, Mark Ruhr was the most truthful, and I could feel them saying to him, shut up. So they couldn't have him on the Teresa Halbach case, and that is why they got Kratz, because they know he would do anything.
Well, yes and no. Oh, crap. Hold on here.
Well, Jack 61, if I could
He had
sort
to
of
recuse.
Please.
Yeah.
if I could sort of semi-answer that, I'll tell you what, Greaseback was incredibly scathing of what happened with the Penny Bernstein case. So could you imagine he had a lot of the history because he was there. He had a lot of the history of what happened to Penny Bernstein, right? And imagine if he was on the Teresa Halbach case, his whole perspective would have been skewed in the back of his mind thinking, shit, they set him up in 1985. Could they possibly set him up again? So there's no way that the state wanted Greaseback anywhere near the Teresa Halbach case. And I've read his book. His book, it's something we got to cover as a group. His book is brilliant when it came to what happened to Penny Bernstein.
Yep.
The amount of knowledge, information was spot on. But then he included chapters of what happened to Teresa Halbach, and the book takes on a totally different tone. It's garbage, which meant all he was doing is being a parrot, repeating what he had heard from others instead of doing investigative research, right?
Yep.
So it's very interesting. Greaseback is the type of guy that will flip-flop. He will go on any side that he considers to be the correct or the right side, right? How he will flip from one, oh yeah, Stephen Avery was hard done by. Oh God, Stephen Avery is a vicious killer. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
Depending on which way the wind blows, right, Doc? That's what I got from him.
Depends on where the cash register rings, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. And it's unfortunate because, he makes a statement, well, yeah, they did all this stuff in 85, but they would never do it in 2005. No way. What? Are you crazy? It's not all the same people, but it's a lot of them.
Now, isn't it interesting? And you've shown it eloquently during the depositions, how everyone wanted to run away. They all wanted to run away. And Mark Rohrer, I don't recall. And yet, who are the first people to run on the Avery salvage yard on November the 5th?
Yeah.
All the fucking DAs. They're all
right.
running onto the property.
4 ADAs and DAs.
They could have had a convention. There were so many legal eagles on that property that could have had a 1 week convention. Now, isn't it remarkable, guys, how important self-preservation is to these guys? They've got
Absolutely.
no shame.
No
shame.
And the truth is, as I look at this now, and actually for the last probably 4 or 5 years, Manitowoc County shouldn't have been within 5 miles of that property. No way. I mean, maybe to originally go there, send an officer or two for Pam God when she found, in air quotes, the RAV4. But after that, because of the lawsuit, they shouldn't have been anywhere near that property. That should have been Brown County, Sheboygan, pick any other county that's local there. They should have been brought in to do the investigation, no matter what it took. And if they couldn't handle it, you bring in federal investigators. That's my opinion. But they were neck deep involved until the 8th. After the 8th, an escape hatch opened up, and they run for the hills. And there's so much that we still don't have. That's so underreported from Manitowoc. You know, I'm trying to get more reports on Yoast. We'll see what we'll see what MCSO is able to provide. I'm hoping we get all of what I asked for. It's been a couple of weeks now, so I suspect he's found something. We'll see. I mean, I think that Cummings would have told me right away that they don't have anything, and he hasn't told me that. He's told me he's still
Right.
working on it.
Right.
So anyway, all right, we've been rolling along here for 3 hours and something, I think. So I'm hungry, and I know Susan's hungry. I'm sure Doc is really hungry.
I'm starving.
Yeah, I am
Have
too.
breakfast.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at
but still, this is remarkable, guys. The parallels. Kaserik happened to know the Bernstons, and Kaserik got personally involved. And then you've got Pagel. Pagel personally knows the Horbach family and personally got involved to the point where he's in an aeroplane flying in the air. I mean, this you can't make this up. Not even Stephen King could write a book like this.
Well, yeah, and Pagel staying out all night on the 5th. What the hell was he doing?
Yep.
And talking about a sheriff doing that, I guess in certain situations, I could probably see that happening. But in this situation, I'm not so sure, because it didn't really have anything else except for the RAV and whatever they went in, the blood that they went in and got out of Stephen's trailer that afternoon. They didn't really have much anything else at that time. Not yet. I just don't understand why he was out all night, and he certainly didn't report what he was doing. So anyway, I want to get everybody out of here. I want to thank everyone. I know these depositions are sometimes difficult to get through. I get it. But I think it's important to get it memorialized, talked about, add the knowledge that we know today. We can even speculate, and we're really forced to in so many situations. But I still think it's important as to complete the story, because the story really starts back in, probably 83 or 84 with Stephen. But we're really, focused on the 85 to the 2005 parallels, as Doc said. They're there, but I think it's important that we do that. We may refer back, we may find out a shit ton of stuff in the next year, and we have to revisit. That's possible. I want to thank everybody for sticking with us during these depositions. For next week, I'm going to have to look at the calendar, because coming up is the anniversary of the 7th Circuit en banc, and I'm going to do an episode for Brendan and cover that, and we're going to listen to the oral arguments, so we're going to go through some of that stuff and things that were said, because it's wronger today than it was then. He's a political prisoner, he's a pawn, and he was used, and they need to fix it, but they never will. Because if they let Brendan out and throw his confession out, it destroys so much of Stephen's case. Destroys it. So with that said, please give us a like, a share the video, tell your friends, tell everybody that may be interested in this advocacy part. I don't know Stephen, I don't know Brendan. I just know that the case was done wrong. I know it for a fact. I think everybody here knows it too. So with that said, I'm going to say thanks everyone. And this has been a Foul Play production.